In three. Hey everybody. We actually went on quicker today for the first time since this whole pandemic craziness has started. We're live with what is a terminal. No, I'm saying that wrong. Turbulent conversation about political correctness in comics. Before we start, I just want to put this out there that all the participants today have been told that we're basing this on the idea that PC is not meant for politeness culture. It is political correctness. A lot of people online seem to not understand that this was made as a political idealism of trying to get someone to say something to hold it against them. We're also going to be talking about SJWs, social justice warriors. They are not the same things as civil rights activists. Some civil rights activists do call themselves social justice warriors, don't understand it. We're not talking about politics, though. We're talking about comic books, and we're going to keep it to comic books. If you want to talk about everything else under the sun, we had a special post today on my page talking about it. I did that so we could hear some opinions and I could be educated by everyone else on my page to talk to me. You might not see Dennis. Dennis is actually with us. He's on my messenger on my phone right here. So you'll be seeing Dennis held up every so often like this to be on the show today. So we're going to go into intros, and we're going to go around the room. Everyone's going to introduce themselves. I'll let Dennis start first, and then you all can take over. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, that's great. Hello?
Yo.
There you go. Okay, I'm back. My name is Dennis Knight. Independent writer and creator with Pronto Comics based in New York City. And been in the comic book industry for about 8 years now.
And I met Dennis at New York Comic Con. He's a great guy. Definitely follow him if you aren't already. Moving on, we have someone new to me. And his camera's broken, so he can't show us his pretty face. But tell us who you are.
Don't worry, it's not too pretty. You're not missing out on much. My name is Michael Oden. This is my first year in the industry. Just started my first campaign for Elysian Fields, which is awesome. Be sure to check that out. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this stuff. Let's rock.
Do you want to do that opening statement you had? You can go for it right now.
It's not a big deal. I kind of just threw that aside once I realized that this wasn't what I was expecting. It was just going to be talking about how, comic books is a modern mythology, and as such, you're like,
no. You teased me with an opening statement. I want the opening statement.
God. All right. So to me, comic books has always been a modern mythology. It's a collection of stories that represent the traits that we as a society hold value in. So when you're talking about, inclusion and what have you in the industry, I feel that it's only natural, especially given the melting pot of culture and ideas and everything that we live in the Western world, that you would have this push for inclusion. But that being said, what has been happening in the industry for the past 10 years or so goes well beyond that, and it's kind of corrupted that whole concept, where we're not dealing with characters anymore. We're dealing with poster children for political ideologies, and that's not what we got into this for. As professional artists, we're here to tell a story, tell a narrative, and entertain. And so what has been happening is not okay.
Hey, Anthony, what do you got?
Hey, my name is Anthony Figueroa. I'm the creator of God's Hand, which is currently in demand on Indiegogo. I'm from New Orleans. I've been around comics since about 2003. And I have the privilege to be on today with you guys and talk about some things that matter in comics.
And I saved the best for last. Mary, tell them who you are.
Hi, I'm Mary Dumas. I write and co-create Romeo X Julian. My forte for the last 5 years in the comic book industry has been transferring what has been known as yaoi into Americanized romance comics that cover more than just a romance side of a story.
And I'm here.
Hear me bring what has been known as yaoi into
Sorry, Mary, that was you talking to you for a second. For this one video, I'm not sharing it to any group. I have a watch party, and that's it. Because this is, again, a political conversation, even though we're not going to be talking about politics. We're going to be talking political things. And I will tell everyone what, and I've said this to all the participants today, and this is not anything new to them. We're going to be talking about color washing, gender swaps, sexuality, cancer culture, and Comicsgate. That's what's on the agenda today. We're going to start off with color washing. We're now in a time where characters are having their actual skin colors changed and their origins changed. And I wanted to talk about that. I think it's an important conversation. You have two sides. One side that fairly wants more diversity in comics, and that's a very, very good thing to have in comics. I don't think anyone on this panel is against diversity in comics, or honestly, I don't think I would have invited you. I think every one of you is very open-minded, so I think this will be a great conversation. But you can't say that we want diversity in comics. To some people, the argument very simply becomes, well, if you want diversity, why do you keep erasing white characters? Why do you keep just changing characters? And why don't you respect their origins? And that becomes, and this will go into what Comicsgate is talking about as we approach them later, a very big stance for some people who want to see original characters versus rebranded characters. So that's the topic. Who wants to start it? Do you want to start, Dennis?
Yeah, I think diversity is very important in comics. Like, everybody wants representation of their gender, of their the ethnicity, the background, but it has to come from a genuine place. That's my biggest beef, because it's like we've seen with Wally West, where it's turned African American. Why? Why not just make a legit character that's African American? That or Barry Allen. That's my point.
And that is fair. Why not just create something new? Why are you repackaging something? And I think that's a point that I've had a lot of friends make of all different backgrounds. And we're going to leave it at that. What do you think, Anthony? I don't see any hands going up, so I'm going to call on you all one at a time.
Sounds like a plan.
I'm going to have to piggyback off of what Dennis said. I think for me, the same thing is what's the agenda behind what you're doing? You know, I don't, you know, if you're telling me, because my background is I have Italian ancestry, right? So if you come and you say, well, we're going to make some new Italian characters, and then what you do is you give me characters which already exist and you just reskin them. It's kind of, I don't know, it's almost, it's like an insult. If you're saying I want new characters and you come in and you're giving me a reskinned character that already existed, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, what am I, a second-class citizen? You can't give me my own characters. You can't give me my own creations or anything like this. I think that's the problem with this is, what's the agenda behind the whole thing? And I think that at the end of the day, just what Dennis said is it a genuine? Because I think if you have craft behind the change, I think it's different. I think if you're just doing it to appease an agenda, and you basically put the agenda over the craft, I think that's what people have the biggest gripe about. Give us good characters. We don't care. Just make sure that they're good. Make sure that they're crafted. Make sure that they're well thought out. Make sure that there's a genuine love behind it. And I think people will accept that.
And Marcus is joining us, and we'll be right with you, Mary. I'm just introducing two people who are late. I'm sorry, Luke. I thought I sent you the link. It must not have sent when I was sending it out. So Luke Stone's joining us and Marcus Roberts is joining us. We're in the middle of the beginning segment. You guys read all the preamble, so you know what we're talking about. We're talking about color washing. I'm going to pass it off to you guys, but introduce yourselves too, please, while I pass it to you. So Marcus, tell us who you are and tell us what you think of color washing. And of course, color washing is just changing characters, backgrounds, and ethnicity. So go ahead, Marcus. What do you think?
I'm Marcus Roberts. I am the publishing manager at Second Sight Studios, also the creator of the Glyph Comics Award, Rising Star nominee, The Protector. As far as color washing is concerned, it's something that's been going on since the inception of comic books. I can go all the way back to 1941, Best Comics. They had a character called the Red Mask. And the Red Mask was a black character. He only appeared in 4 issues. By issue 3, they had changed the skin tone of the character on the cover to white, although he remained black in the interior. So, I mean, this is something that's been going on, and we will never get away from it. Never. Because the excuse of color tones, can't get the right mixture to get the right color. I mean, it's there. It's been used. It's still being used. So, I mean, it's just something we can't get away from. As far as its acceptability, I believe it's already been said. If it's done to appease people, then that's derogatory. But the thing about something like in the case of Isaiah Bradley, the Black Captain America, his whole backstory, because of how they used the fact that Black people had been experimented on in the military against their will and unbeknownst to them, and use that to say, well, we this experimentation done and have a recipient of the super soldier serum become like Captain America. Not exactly like Captain America, but still, they use that whole experimentation angle to create a character. So in the case of Isaiah Bradley, I wouldn't so much call that whitewashing, but I would call that expanding the mythos of the character.
Well, that wouldn't be whitewashing at all because you have a brand new character. He's not named Steve Rogers. So that wouldn't qualify as what is considered, even the other thing I've heard is ethnic swapping, where you're just changing a character. One of the things that we will get into is how does it change the character. But first, we want to welcome in Luke and then get what Mary wanted to say. Luke, what's going on?
Oh, not much. My name's Luke Stone. I'm the writer and artist behind Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, and you can find that on Kickstarter right now. I'm also the project manager at Starcross Comics, and so I do a little bit of helping people get their projects off the ground and go from idea, concept into actual physical books on shelves or on tables. So that's a little bit about me. I would say that whole question of swapping. I just don't care for it. I really don't. And I see it a lot. Like, we see it in movies where, I think it's offensive if you take a black character, make them white, or if you take an Asian character, make them white, or if you take a white character, make them black or Asian or anything like that. I think it's lazy, personally. I don't think it holds to the background of the character. I think, if I believe in diversity in comics first, let me say that. My comics are very diverse. They've got people of different genders, different backgrounds, different races, and spoiler alert, even different sexual orientations. And so I just don't think that I think that you could include diversity into your comics, but I think you should be creative with it. I think that you should create new characters, new IPs that really speak to the character and background of the people that we're trying to represent, like my friends, my neighbors, those kind of people. I don't think that I think it's a lazy way to take a character that's been historically one thing and then try to make them something else. I think it's also offensive in many cases as well, but that's just me.
What do you think, Mary?
Well, the offense that you're talking about is basically an offense to the original creator. If the gentleman who founded or wrote the first book of Captain America was Jewish, had the opportunity to say, "Don't you dare make Captain America a Nazi," I think they would have. I think, though, that the new Captain America, who is black, has a well-rounded new authorization that makes it so that it isn't a blackwash or a whitewash. It is a new story within the mythos of the Captain America.
So I totally agree with that.
There's a way to do it that is creative and isn't disheartening to the already existing fans. But there's also a way to just shove it in there because it's the politically correct thing to do right now, and it might sell more comics. And I think that is where we're having so much difficulty right now.
I would challenge that.
Luke. everyone do me a favor. Raise your hands if you want to talk. There's a lot of people in the room, and that stresses StreamYard. And you guys wind up trying to talk over each other. It just gives negative space on the recording. So let's raise hands. I'm going to go with Marcus first, Luke, just because he said he disagreed, and then we'll come right back. And Anthony, I saw your hand too, right? You can just raise your hand. Your hand's going right near your name, so raise like that. If we can't see your camera, so just say, "Hey, Rob," for you, because I know you're unmuted. So if we can't see your camera, just say, and same thing, Dennis. I can't always see you, just because of the angle. Just say, "Hey, Rob," and I'll break in so you can talk next. All right, so Marcus, now that we got all that, because again, I don't want anyone talking over each other, because that's how things get heated and we don't hear each other. So Marcus, go for it.
All right, I disagree with the making the Falcon Captain America, and I said this before, because if you wanted to have a black person take care of Captain America and you want to work within this mythos, then why not go back to Battlestar, who originally was Bucky, and they found that offensive, which really it was, when you had the other guy who was Captain America. So if you want to do that, why get rid of a character like the Falcon just to make him Captain America? And then because of the displeasure with that, you make another character that you call the Falcon, who is a Hispanic guy, just because people complain that you got rid of the Falcon to make him Captain America. I mean, there were so many other people that you could choose from. Why take an existing character and get rid of them?
Well, all the other characters who have been pre-existing then, Marcus?
Say again?
You're saying why take a pre-existing character, but you're talking about replacing with a pre-existing character. I didn't follow that.
Because Battlestar, according to the
No, I get all that. What I'm saying is, are you saying don't take away from, just so I'm clear, because I didn't fully understand it, but let me take a stab. You're saying don't take away an established character, use a less known or maybe a possibly background character that's not front and center, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Just wanted to make sure I was clear on that, because today we want to be clear. I don't want anyone's words twisted against them later. And if you're done, Marcus, I'm going to pass it off to Anthony, because Anthony had his arm up. I didn't see him. And I promise, Luke, I'm coming back to you. You good, Marcus?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
All right. Go ahead, Anthony. Your mic's off. There you go.
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, I kind of agree. I listened to this little dude named Young Ripper on the YouTube, and he made the same argument, and it was a sound argument, and I liked it. It was that you're taking, the same argument Marcus made, is you're taking a character that's well established, that has, that is a diverse character, and then you're taking that character, changing, basically removing all of that to put all of this new identity on them. Why? You know what I mean? I keep coming back to that, and it's just this idea, and I don't know how you get around it, is that what is the ultimate? What are you doing? Where are you going with all of this? You know what I mean? Are you trying to just cash in on a fad? Are you trying to actually change agenda? Like, what are you trying to do? Because I don't see in just to move it just for a second. I guess I shouldn't. That's for the next one. I'll save that one. The female Thor, I was going to go into that, but we'll save that for gender swapping. But I agree with that. I don't understand. You have enough black creators. You have enough Hispanic creators. You have enough different creators to create different characters. I don't understand why you're engaging in this thing of let's take characters and just swap their color and all of this stuff. And why aren't you just allowing creators to create new content? I don't understand why you're trying. Why don't you just unleash these people and let them create new stuff instead of trying to control it by doing this swapping thing? Which again, I don't. I guess if it was a business decision, I could somewhat get behind and say, okay, well, it's business. If people are buying it and people want that, go for it. Feed the masses what they want. But you're getting people who are bucking back saying, this is not what we want. Stop doing this. And yet it's still being done. So that's the part where I'm kind of like, what's your motive behind all of this?
All right, we're being joined by Randy, so we're going to continue to rotate
He
people.
said Zimmerman. Look at those.
Okay. Hello,
Lou,
everybody.
can we just let Randy introduce himself and catch him up to where we are so he knows what we're talking about? We're talking about color swapping or color washing or ethnic swapping when people are swapped out of their original origin of their ethnicity. I always get that. It's so hard.
Ethnicity.
Thank you. It's always
You're
hard
welcome.
for dyslexia.
No problem.
And swapping it. This is Randy Zimmerman. Thank you for coming on. Tell him who you are.
Randy Zimmerman. I'm a longtime independent alternative comic creator, publisher, everything that you can imagine. I've done just about everything in this business that you can imagine and then some. Right now, I'm a award-winning commercial and graphic artist, and do a channel here on YouTube called Zim Geek, Zimmgeek, and I'm part of the Indie Vault podcast, where we talk about comics and stuff, mostly
And
independent comics and stuff.
the best kind of comics, you mean?
Yes, only the best.
All right, Luke, what did you have to say? Because I do want to wrap this up. I want to get Randy's idea on it, but what did you want to add to this?
What I was going to say is that my offense is not towards the creator, because the creator can do with the character whatever they want. It's their character, right? It's their IP. My offense is to the people groups that they represent. It's very offensive, I think, to take something that's already established as one thing and then to lazily just choose another ethnic background, or like in the case of the Captain America thing. Now, here's my point on liking that. It's that Cap and Falcon were buddies, and when Cap is out of the game, his best friend takes up that mantle. But it does do two things. It either says that he got a promotion, which means that his other character, who he was before, his other identity is not as important as this one identity that he's now taking on. It does that, but then it also leaves a void for this other character. And I agree with the two of you in that sense that there are so many really good creators out there that why don't we just create new characters and new IP? And I think that part of that is because of
Jax.
is just because the difficulty in business of trying to bring those new creators in. But they, so then there's other questions. Why aren't those creators already a part of the system already? But yeah, I agree. There's really good creators that.
All right, Luke, let's stay on topic. Let's not open cans of other conversations. That's what you're about to do.
I'm not PC. I don't care.
It's not about PC. I just want to get everyone the same fair amount of time. Because you're going to say something, then everyone's going to want to have two comments about it, as I'm being bullied by a child. So, Randy, what do you think about color washing? Characters just being changed. And someone had pointed this out, and I just want to stress this point. I love the fact someone pointed out that they're not retro-cunning the character to fit with their sudden change, which is a very important aspect of what we're talking about. You just changing a character does not respect what that character is now a lot of times. So I think it was Marcus you had mentioned that. Very good observation, that you're not paying homage to who they are by just changing them.
I think we were on a previous conversation. I think Marcus was the one who pointed out that they had a black Captain America already. It was called Battlestar.
Mm-hmm. He had mentioned that today.
And they should have moved him in and kept Falcon. Falcon should have said, no, I'm comfortable in my own identity. I like the character I am. I'm staying the Falcon. Let this guy be, I'm not sure, though I was not reading the books at the time to see how the writer had treated Sam Wilson's motivation in becoming Captain America. But I would be much, much more engaged if they kept the history at a constant level, brought in, if they're gonna change the race of Captain America, bring in somebody new and keep Sam Wilson as Falcon. But Falcon's one of about a half a dozen or so ethnic characters or black people of color that Marvel and DC have always disregarded and and have never brought up to a proper level. Yeah, because I used to love, reading Luke Cage and reading Shang-Chi and all of this, not because the guy's skin color was different, was because there is a different, I grew up in rural America. These guys were in the inner city or This guy was over in Asia. I wanted to read their stories because I wanted to escape mine. You know, and there's no reason for them to all of a sudden, well, Captain America's slot's open, so I guess his sidekick gets to step up. That's ridiculous. They shouldn't be treated as Sam should have never been treated as a sidekick. He should have had his own title. Storm, like I said before, Storm should have had her own title. Power Man should have been brought up with more respect and bumped up. Night Thrasher definitely deserves a change in the name or a more updating name, but he should be stepped up. And there's a need for diversity, absolutely, but there's not a need in changing the skin tone of a character. You know, just to do it. It just seems pandering.
I see your hand up, Anthony. I just want to ask Dennis, did you have anything to say? Because I couldn't see if your arm was up.
No, I'm good for now.
Oh, okay, Anthony, go for it.
I think I was thinking about it. What Marcus was saying, I was thinking about this. You know, there's ways to go about doing this stuff. If you really want to try these characters out, you really want to try to do this. Because I was thinking about, it's a little different today, but I mean, you have alternate universes. And so you create this alternate universe, and then you have a Nick Fury that looks like Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think it was an alternate thing, but it caught on, and people were like, "Oh, this is kind of cool," right? And the fans accepted it, no big deal. You could do the same thing, and I just was thinking about it. Is okay, so you do an alternate timeline, and you say, okay, so Isaiah Bradley is first. Steve Rogers comes along and dies. And now Isaiah Bradley is the only person who has this. And then you write this whole alternate timeline with Isaiah Bradley being Captain America and what it was like to be Captain America through Jim Crow, through all these things. And then you have this character and you have this world over here. And if people are like, wow, this is really interesting. Now you have this character, which is established, which is this thing, doesn't step on Steve Rogers, doesn't step on anything that's over here. And now you have two books and people can go, wow, you can either pick this one, or you can buy both of them. So I don't see, that's my thing, is if you're genuine, and I think Dennis brought this up originally, if you're genuine in what you're doing, if you're genuine in this stuff, and let me just say this right now, because I find myself wanting to do it as well, and I'm having to force myself not to do it, and I think it's part of this culture now is I don't like having to qualify. I don't like to come on here and say, oh, I'm for diversity. Of course I'm for, who is not for diversity? Who's not for these things? Right? I mean, it's this idea that I have to qualify and say this stuff because I'm afraid I'm going to get pounced on by the diversity police. And it's like, I don't have to defend myself. I already know. I like diversity. I don't have to tell anybody that shit.
Then why are you doing it, man? Why are
exactly,
you doing
because I'm putting out there right now. Stop doing it. Stop doing it.
Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to raise my hand.
You're fine, man. Go for it, Mike.
Okay, so we're talking Sam Wilson, Captain America, and this is actually something that I like talking about. Captain America is my favorite superhero. This is something that I'm very well acquainted with. So when it comes down to Sam Wilson, I understand what you guys are saying, and I get where you're coming from, but I've always, as somebody that's been reading Cap for a good chunk of their life, I've always seen Sam as the kind of person that Steve would choose to be his successor if he would ever fall. Like, Bucky had his whole stint as Cap way back in the day after Civil War, and that was actually the storyline that got me into collecting comics, was Burden of Dreams. But I've always felt that, if Steve were to pick somebody to carry on this title, it would have been Sam. And the whole reason for it is that when he was that man out of time, Sam wasn't his sidekick. He was his partner that helped him be grounded in that. He was like his Jiminy Cricket kind of, He was the kind of person that was helping Steve come to terms with this modern day that was so foreign to him. And so I really liked that. The problem becomes Captain America is always going to be a political book, and even back to its the first Captain America book was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, two Jewish kids with family going through God knows how awful stuff over in Germany at the time, firing their own first shot against Nazi Germany. Captain America #1 came out in 1940. and that's 2-3 years away from us declaring war. And you got a guy in an American flag punching Hitler across the face, a man that Time named Man of the Year. Like, politics is going to be a part of this story. And at the time, you had the country was through social media and a whole bunch of other stuff was going through these rapid changes where conflicting ideas were right out there in the open. And so I thought that by having Steve be in this position where he was no longer Captain America and he handed the mantle over to Sam, and this caused a lot of issues, was supposed to speak volumes on the divided nature of our country, but it wasn't handled well. And that's where it gets to be a problem, is when you don't focus on writing a narrative and writing a story and pushing a character for what they are rather than their political statements. You're no longer putting out art. You're putting out propaganda.
I will say this, though, again, in this circumstance, we're not really talking about color washing as much as we're talking about a character giving up their persona,
yeah,
the superhero, and giving it to someone else. There is a big difference between that. What we were more talking about is that what if you made Steve Rogers suddenly black?
Yeah, and
that is really the topic we're on right now. And I did let this go on a little bit longer because I didn't want to cut anyone off. But there's a bigger difference between giving up an outfit and giving up your whole identity and rebooting a character that way. And I think a lot of people can admit this, and me and Marcus have talked about this. I remember when Michael B. Jordan was being cast in people's figurative minds as the next Batman, and I was like, you can't just turn Batman black without really thinking about it. I was like, first, Michael B. Jordan's bad for it. Sorry, I don't think he'd do a good Bruce Wayne. Second, my problem with it is that you have to retrocon the entire character all the way back to his childhood. Because with a rich kid who's not white, but instead this time black, and his family gets gunned down in an alley, what does the news media say about that character? What does that get drawn in TMZ? Does he grow up to hate corporations? Does he hate corporations so much that the Batman he grows up to be takes out corporations? Instead of the Joker, he's taking out Pfizer. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a very big, different world that I think would be created by that. And if you don't acknowledge it, like making Nick Fury a black, you don't acknowledge the fact that a black guy in Vietnam might not have been the most comfortable things at times. And he might have had some trouble even in Vietnam. And even especially with World War II, if you follow him back to World War II. So I do think that there's some disingenuous attention to detail when it comes to those things. And it just proves that a generation of writers isn't taking serious the actual humanity and all the history that goes into it. And I do think these writers miss that. Marcus, were you raising your hand before you got kicked out?
Yeah, I was. And the one thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly was characterization. But as you said, this is not, since we're talking about the whitewashing, I want to just skip all the characterization of Sam Wilson as Captain America and hop on to Nick Fury, because although that wasn't in an alternate universe, the Ultimate Comics universe, still I think that is one of the big prime examples that can be used just because, but because ultimately the character became of the black Nick Fury just took over.
I don't know if you can say he was more popular, maybe more popular in our generation. He was a pretty big deal when he was originally a character.
Yeah, Howling Commandos was a really good, really
really
like they competed with Sergeant Rock, which was also a huge deal.
Think about it. They have currently in the Marvel universe, they elevated Nick Fury up to some kind of eternal cosmic being, and they wrote a storyline where he has a black son. So the new Nick Fury and what was Marvel Prime was black because they had to have a black Nick Fury. The white Nick Fury was just not working anymore. Black Nick Fury was what was happening. So in the Marvel Prime universe, they even made Nick Fury black, have him have a son.
But stop me if I'm wrong here. but they retroconned him for it to work. Instead of
Yeah.
Vietnam, it was Desert Storm. They actually took the time to go back, and he actually carries problems with the military and him serving at certain points with him being who he was. And they expanded on the character. They just didn't go, boom, you're a different color. They actually talked about it. They reinvented the character. That I give them credit for. You came in right when I was saying that, and I was making the reference towards Nick Fury, and I was just about to say how they updated the character. Did you freeze again, Marcus? Oh no, you're good.
No, I just had my head still. Yeah, I mean, even though they did go back and give you a reason why he has the black son. Still, all of that is just, to me, pandering.
I get what you're saying, but I also think that, like, in particular, I don't think that the Nick Fury race swap is an especially good example of this, because the reason why they did the Nick Fury race swap comes down to one thing: money. Marvel Cinematic Universe is easily one of the most I think that it's no one that can disagree with this at this point. Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of the top franchises of all time, and so when you are bringing new readers into your books, people are going to want to see the people that they see on screen. And so, yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I understand that. But when it comes down to race swapping characters, like, I care far more about things that are like blatant. Like, you know, you had the Fantastic Four movie that everybody just kind of ignores and pays like little attention to, because we all kind of just mutually agreed that it doesn't exist. Or you had Michael B. Jordan swapped out to be Johnny Storm, or like these things where you take these staple characters and just swap them for the sake of politics, not necessarily off of an industry decision to make more money. And it's crazy because, like, normally I'd be able to, like, rattle off like 20 examples, but of course now that I'm talking about it, it's mind goes blank. But, like, you know, the big problem here is that when it comes down to race swapping, you're not doing anybody any favors. You should, like, at the end of the day, you should be trying to create new characters, because that's how the industry grows. The Silver Age of comics, every single big age of comic books is defined by one thing: a surplus of new characters. And so heading into the modern age and having people be like, why aren't there more people of color? Why aren't there more people like this, that, or the other? The question shouldn't be what IPs can we swap? The question is, what IPs can we create? What characters can we create to tell this modern story and bring this universe to a modern perspective that deals with issues that people resonate with? Like, that's always been Marvel's big thing, right? Is, you know, real stories.
No, that's not me.
Not me.
That's me. Sorry.
That's okay. A lot of that going on today. All right, we have spent 38 minutes talking about this one topic. We do have to switch.
They're coming to arrest me. I need to go. No, I'm just kidding.
All I can say is it's about time, Randy. It's about time.
They were hearing our conversation, and
standards and practices.
That was our wonderful governor telling us that we get to stay home through the end of the month, minimal.
Nice. All right, so let's switch it to gender swapping. Same basic idea, a little bit of a shorter conversation, a lot more political, because I know guys especially, and I'm sorry, Mary had a sound card issue. I really wish Mary was here for this part, because now it's just going to look like a bunch of guys picking on this topic, but it is going to be what it is. I have not seen any change my mind. Not one gender swap has worked. I know some people talk about Thor and how great Thor was and how there was a beautiful story. I didn't see that. I did not see fans respond well to that. Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, I'm sorry.
Let Randy go. I want to hear Randy. Let Randy go.
I
was just going to say, who?
I'm sorry. Who? What? No. They definitely responded better than the previous 3 versions of Thor, because those were all dogs, and at least this version of Thor had an interesting enough hook to be able to bump the sales.
Mm.
You know,
But-
and the female Thor, I honestly don't have much of a problem with,
Okay, and hold on.
except
What
for the
is your-
fact that the logic on the hammer doesn't work, and she's
Yeah.
still people, and anyway.
Hold on, guys. Dennis wanted to say something. You can't hear him until he starts talking. Go ahead, Dennis.
I'm sorry.
No, initially, I remember like it was like the big thing everybody was talking about in the shops. Everybody was talking about everywhere. Like, man, people lost their minds.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make Thor a woman? People like the story itself was great, but people initially were not very receptive to the idea of like Thor being a woman.
You know
it
what?
goes down, like he's been like a guy like all this time. Why change it now? That was like the initial reaction, I think.
Maybe I'm a pervert, but I kind of liked it. She looked hot. I'm just gonna put it out there.
I liked it, to be honest.
Yeah, I liked the idea. I was not one of those guys. I was like, I don't care about that. I think I cared more when they tried to turn Iron Man suddenly into a
Ironheart.
woman. Yeah, but no, it wasn't Ironheart at first. See, that's a RetroCon they did. They were.
I
mean,
have to
it's
disagree
Bendis,
with the Iron Man thing because she was not made or created to replace Iron Man. She was made and created to replace War Machine. They killed War Machine off, and they brought her in.
I don't know. I would agree with you if they had made her personality similar to Rhodey, but it's very clear that like she's supposed to be like she was set up in Bendis's initial storyline as the person that tanked Stark Industries because she hacked into Stark's mainframe. Like you don't give a character like that kind of setup without implying that, oh well, she's better than Tony Stark, she's gonna be better as Iron Man. And I think that's where a lot of the issues here come in, is that when it comes down to handling a strong female character, most of these modern we'll just call them SJW writers will treat women not as equals or anything, but they always have to be better. I mean, look at what's been going on with Carol Danvers for years. She murdered Tony Stark and everybody's just okay with it. Even Tony's just like,
Randy,
no,
I know Randy's got a lot with Carol Danvers, so go ahead, Randy.
Carol Danvers is an embarrassment, and she was shipped off into space as binary for a reason, because they had messed that character up so bad, and they knew that they had messed that character up, because after the Avengers Annual, you had all them women writing in, or anybody who had recognized it wrote in, went, "She got raped by her kid, dude. What are you doing? She got raped by her kid. What are you doing?"
Yeah, I always
maybe she did. We don't know. Ship her off into space. Claremont did the best thing to that character, that particular character that they ever could have done, and Kelly Sue McConaughey completely went through and changed it and just ignored it, which is a sham and a shame. If they needed a masthead for Marvel with the name of Captain Marvel, they needed to make a female. They already had 2 female Captain Marvels. They could have picked Monica Rambeau, or they could have picked the blue one to take over. It's so easy. Why Carol Danvers?
I think that you probably would have gone with Monica Rambeau, considering that we at least know her name, and you went with the blue one for the other one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. If I did some research, I'd figure out what her name
No,
is.
I get what you say. The Monica Rambeau actually made an impression.
Monica Rambeau is already too powerful in their minds.
Yeah,
She was Spectrum, then she was whoever, and they switched her identity and name and costume so many times. It's ridiculous. Just let her be Captain Marvel. Just give it.
Mike, we're going to go to Luke, actually. Luke was raising his hand. Go ahead, Luke. No, you're okay, Randy.
So, all these, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about this, and I know, my opinion matters most because I'm a middle-aged white man.
Don't go triggering people there.
I'm saying it jokingly, but the thing is, I was raised by a strong, powerful woman. And my wife, though quiet, is a strong, powerful woman. My daughter is a strong, powerful woman, and I write a lot of strong, powerful women in my books. I like it when they create strong, powerful women. I've always loved Wonder Woman. But I don't like it when they again, it goes back to that kind of like retro fitting a character or whatever. Don't just swap for the sake of a political agenda, in my opinion, or for the sake of pandering to a certain group so that you can make a couple extra bucks. I think it's sloppy. I think it's lazy, and ultimately, I think it's a little offensive. That what it does, it says like, look, we don't care enough to really create something brand new for this, for this gender. All we want to do is get your money. So we're going to take something that's already previously established, and we're just going to put a different gender on there. And and I know you probably got the question about sexuality in there too. I'm equally and probably more offended by the homosexuality thing.
Let's stay with the topic then.
Okay.
We'll open that can of worms in a minute because Anthony wanted to chime in, and I know Anthony's been biting at the lip to say something. Go for it, Anthony.
Well, we was talking about the female Thor. I thought the problem with all of that was that they made her Thor, and I thought that was the issue, is that it was supposed to be Thor it's Thor. That's his name. And then you made her.
Is it a male name?
Again?
Is it actually a male name? Because I remember growing up with Thor, where it had the hammer and it said you got the powers of Thor when you had the hammer.
Yes.
Correct.
So if a female had picked
Thor,
it up, wouldn't they have turned into a female version?
Well, again, Thor. Again, you get into this whole thing of, okay, you can parse this out however you want, but anybody knows that in Norse mythology, Thor's a dude. Like that's his name. That's his name. That's who he is. It's Thor. Mm-hmm. So if you want to make another character who gets the hammer, right? Again, it may have the power of, but that's not Thor. But right? You understand what I'm saying? So I think that's the. Go ahead.
Wasn't the original concept of the Marvel Thor that he actually was only summoned by the hammer? Randy, am I wrong about that?
He was summoned by the hammer? No, they retcon that Thor so many times it's not even funny. He's such a mess. He's like Wolverine.
What I'm saying is that the issue is if you want to, again, if you don't want to pump agenda so much and you want to actually do craft, then you recognize shit like that, and then you recognize the source material. You don't step on it, and that's my issue with that whole thing. To be honest with you, I mean, whatever. I really, whatever. My issue with the Captain Marvel thing is again, my issue with all of this shit is you have people who essentially I don't think really follow comics, really are a part of the lore. Making some of these decisions. The Captain Marvel thing, I mean, in my opinion, that's basically Marvel getting caught with their pants down. DC's over here. DC had Wonder Woman. They've been having Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's part of the Trinity. They had a strong female from the Jump Street. Marvel ain't got. You ever remember the Illuminati? Ain't no women on that board. So they got caught with their pants down and had to hurry up and shoehorn this Carol Danvers thing in and say, oh no, she's our Wonder Woman. She's the most powerful thing in the world. That's always my issue.
And yet Storm's
is you cramming right.
And yet Storm's been running around since '77.
Well, you couldn't use Storm for over a decade because of the Fox dispute. So all those strong Marvel characters that were females were sent to the mothballs, and a new breed of these X-Men that made no sense were brought out, and I don't think there's one newer X-Men that anyone has ever said, oh my God, that's a great X-Men. Not a single one made in the last 10 years has been popular at all.
Yep.
And they threw away all the X-Men. And I said that in the thread the other day. Everyone's like, oh, that was the only strong female character. Bull. There was Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix, one of the most badass characters Marvel ever had. And just absolutely did a wonderful story of it right before the whole Fox thing came out. And that got thrown away because they couldn't play with those characters. And the minute Disney bought Marvel, the X-Men were put on mothballs.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of that had to do with, I know that at the time, Marvel had reached out to Sony and they had come to the agreement about Spider-Man. And there was all this talk that they had been reaching out to Fox, but then apparently all of those talks kind of fell to pieces. And so the strategy was kind of push X-Men to the side, push Inhumans as the new X-Men. And that didn't do well at all. In fact, like I'm not sure if you guys have been following Rick Remender at all, but he's been throwing up all sorts of stuff about rejected concepts and what have you. And one of like the big things was he had an Uncanny X-Men book he was looking at doing, but it ended up getting shelved because they wanted to make him focus on the Inhumans, and he had no interest in it. And it is really a shame because most of the strong female characters in Marvel actually were cinematically with Fox at the time. Like you've got, all the X-Men characters, Storm, Kitty Pryde, Magic, the list goes on. And then you've got Sue Storm and the Fantastic Four, all of these characters that are strong women that have been holding their own in the Marvel universe for decades were unfortunately under that Fox banner. And so when the Fox thing blew up, Fantastic Four got completely taken out of reality for a hot minute.
Ship them off. That's it. We don't own them. Ship them off. Get them out of here.
The X-Men all of a sudden is like, this was just a hiccup in the genetic. I remember when they tried to like completely discredit the X gene.
Yep,
like,
they were all going to die. That's it. You're done. You're canceled. Cancel culture. Next.
And it was really unfortunate. I remember calling that too. My friends were like, "There's no way they're going to do that." I'm like, "I'm telling you right now, Disney is not happy that this Fox thing went through. It did not go through, and they're going to make Marvel stop making X-Men books." And sure enough, within the next month, there were like 6 title cancellations for X books, and I was like, "Yep."
And you're missing the important part of the story. They were so mad they bought Fox. Like they just waited to literally buy their enemy. Like, oh, you didn't want to play with us. That's fine. And then they fired. Like it was like a Black Friday.
Oh yeah, no, it was bad.
They just cut, and they were like, "New Mutants, what's this?" They kept throwing it out.
I'm not weeping any tears over that. By the time that the Disney purchase of Fox happened, I had lost all hope in Fox's ability to make X-Men films. I really liked the direction they were starting to go through with First Class and then Days of Future Past. I know that a lot of people
we're geeking out a bit. We're going to reel it back into the main topic. You have to switch up. We're going to switch. If anyone had a final comment about that, I don't want to cut anyone off. If anyone had a quick final comment, Dennis, anything to add quickly?
No, I really want to get to sexuality.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on to sexuality, which goes to some of my foreground. As someone who's created a fetish book, I have been attacked. Actually, Randy's been on some of the Indie Vault show where I've been attacked personally. And rumors just spread about me because I want to talk about sexuality. Sexuality is, in America, one of the things that's either he, or you can't talk about that. There's very little mature conversations about it. So today we're going to talk about PC enforcing their prude methods while at home being absolute freaks who don't admit it. Because comic book sales prove that variant covers with sexy women sell better. That it's some of the reasons some of these comic book creators in indie honestly have a career is just because of their covers and not because of their actual content. Hi, Marcel Dupree. Not because of their content.
We're getting off topic, Rob.
I'm calling it out who it is. I mean, we all know Marcel Dupree puts out smut covers to make his money, and then he calls it art. I'm just calling it how it is. Dennis, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Cause I actually have no. That's like when it comes to like Rob's work, his fetish babies books and things like that is like that's not fair because it's like he's having a mature conversation about something that he cares about. He's like, why take away from it? That's my thing. It's like you can be mature. Like I said, if it comes to like for me, sexuality, if it like actually contributes to the conversation of comics, if it contributes to the character, by all means, have at it. But be mature and be open-minded about it. I think the audience as a whole is not as open-minded as they think they are. So it's something like comes out of left field. Oh wait, you can't talk about that, and it shouldn't be that.
Who wants to go next?
I would like to go.
Go, Luke.
So here's my thing about this. Obviously, people have sex, and we talk about those in comics. And I think if it serves a story, that's fine. But my biggest problem is so I have some homosexual friends, and I don't think anything is more offensive I get offended on their behalf when someone takes a historically straight character and then they just decide to be gay like it's a choice. That just ticks me off.
Luke, let me ask you a question to play devil's advocate, because we're
Sure.
going to be honest in this conversation. You are just assuming they were straight. You don't understand that there are a lot of gay people who hide for a very long time and don't come out of the closet until later in life. And you are just assuming your sexuality on someone else.
Well, they need to work that into the story, because when this, so I had an uncle. His nickname was Smokey. Okay, and he was Uncle Smokey, and he had gotten married. He had a couple of kids, but this guy, he was a drag queen, and man, he was a good drag queen, and he was known for being a drag queen. Do these parades and stuff like that, and yes, so I know very much that you can hide your sexuality over a period of time. But that's got to be a part of the story that's really, you don't just, for my gay friends, they don't just come out willy-nilly. It's a big deal to do that, to make that statement. And I just the way they handle some of it, it's like it was a choice, like Aqualad. He was with a girl, he was straight, and now, now he's gay. Like he chose that.
Was Aqualad, I mean, with a name like Aqualad, were you ever really straight?
Well, I was always thinking that maybe Aquaman was.
I mean, Aqualad, like right away. I mean, I'm sorry, Iceman being gay made sense to me as a huge fan. I was like, I could see that right away. But if you made Wolverine gay and suddenly had an affair with Scott Summers, hi, Varian. I know that it would bother certain people very much so. And it bothers me because Scott and Wolverine hated each other. So what? I was just seeing sexual chemistry in the girl who doesn't like the boy for the last 50 years. Go ahead, Marcus.
But I believe Wolverine being gay more so than Iceman being gay. Because Iceman, from his inception, has always been the womanizer, has always been transparent in all his actions. Wolverine, on the other hand, mysterious background. Nobody knows all his secrets. We don't even know his true age. We don't know what he was doing. We don't know who he was doing it with. We just assume his masculinity because of his look and his feral nature.
Hasn't Wolverine been officially documented now with a backstory? Well, currently.
Yes and no. They did the
Spin
origin book, but it's so hard to pinpoint what is canon for Wolverine at this point, because they literally throw new stuff at him every few arcs. I remember when I was in high school, they had this whole thing about every single time he came close to death, he fought the Angel of Death, and that's why he was able to come back from mortal injuries. They never stop. They never stop.
Mike, I'm going to interrupt you we're breaking with Randy. Randy, go ahead.
It's as if they have editors up there that don't know what they're doing.
That's Marvel. Isn't that Marvel's slogan? We hire people who don't care.
It definitely is now.
Didn't the Antos woman from Valiant Comics just say that comic book creators are not publicists?
No, they're not customer service representatives.
So these are people who don't want to deal with you. You're the worst fans in the world, according to the people who are in charge right now at Marvel and Valiant now. Valiant should fire her. To say that your fan base is the worst in the world means you don't understand your fan base. Okay, Anthony. Anthony's going to tell me I'm wrong, and he's going to defend.
I'm not. Yeah.
Here comes
I just look, man. I'm trying to figure this out, because as far as sexuality goes, are we relating this to PC and SJWs? Or we just? Well, I mean, is that what we're talking about? How because at the end of the day, I think that's all. That's what's going to be the recurrent theme. Is that what are we talking about? Are we talking about that you did this?
Well, Anthony, let me answer the question. We're talking about PC. The only reason these characters are being swapped now is specifically because of this PC SJW culture. You cannot say that they came in and deliberately started to change favorite characters to be either disruptive or representative of themselves, depending on which story you want to go for. But either way, it is offending fans, and it's going I don't hear you. I don't care. I don't care how many years you've been a fan. I'm going to do whatever I want because I now work with Marvel. Who cares if you've dedicated 30 years of your life being a fan? I got this job last week, and now I can do whatever I want. Fuck you. Go ahead, Randy.
As if they have editors up there that don't know what they're doing.
Okay. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is there anybody on this panel that disagrees with that?
That's a good question.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Marcus, do you
Right. Is it? Yeah. That would be my first question. Is there anyone who disagrees that
Let's
that's?
go around the room. Marcus, do you disagree with that? That PC is influencing these characters to have their sexuality changed? That's the question, right, Anthony?
Yes.
Marcus, do you disagree?
I'm kind of on the fence about it because
We'll come back to you. We'll just
come back to me on that.
I think it absolutely is encouraged by that. I think that there are some moves that have been made that's genuine, but for the most part, it's SJW and it's PC culture forcing this to happen. Dennis?
I agree 100%. I actually read some articles a couple of days ago, especially Marvel, they actually are influencing the writers to write XYZ because this is what people want, which is not always the case.
And Disney can't admit that Mickey and Minnie fuck. Luke, off to you. I love doing that. Do you think that this is influenced by SJW and PC?
100%.
Okay, Randy?
If it's being driven by PC, I think it's being driven by editors up there that have their own personal agendas.
And that would be PC, basically.
And they want to go out and hire. Well, you're gay. Come here. We got Iceman. Iceman's gay. You can write Iceman.
And
Exactly
Mike,
how the guy got his job.
I think that there's no real question on that. I mean, Randy just mentioned that that all the editors are looking for it. That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, look at what's her name, Evita Ayala. You go to her social media and she is not secret. Her brand is labeled right out. She is queer and POC. And that's what she wants to be known for. And those are the people that they're hiring. And it's not based off of talent from what I can see, or even passion. It's just based off of who best can we get to fit an agenda in a book.
Yep.
Mike, what's POC?
Peoples of color.
Thank you. I just want to make sure everyone knows the terminology. PC, by the way, political correctness. It's not politely correct. Stop making it about politeness. PC is far from just politeness. Marcus, Anthony, we're going to come right back to you. But Marcus was the only one.
I want to hear from Marcus. I want to hear
go for it.
All right, now because of what was just said, that's the reason why I'm on the fence, because there is an agenda at play. There is this cramming it in our faces, pushing it down our throats, that type of thing. And at the same time, you want to be reflective of society. So it's like they hadn't found that balance yet. Instead of finding someone who is truly representative of society and its ideals, they want to make someone. They want to find someone, like Randy just said. They say, hey, you're gay? Okay, yeah, come write our gay character. And there's no authenticity to it. It doesn't feel genuine or real. So I'm like on the fence because I want comics to reflect society. I just don't want you to force it. Make it happen organically. Make it happen naturally.
Yep.
Go ahead, Luke.
I would like to talk about Sophie Campbell.
Hold on.
Amazing.
Before we go to Sophie, hold on. I know the Sophie Campbell thing. Before you go to that, Anthony, did you have any follow-ups for Marcus?
No, because now he's got me. Luke got me thrown off with the Sophie Campbell.
Okay, Luke, go for it.
Sophie Campbell.
Okay.
Sophie Campbell is completely competent in what she is capable of doing. You might remember her first as Ross Campbell, who drew comics and was in the industry before that, and then one day transitioned, and the news came out like, hey, Ross Campbell's now Sophie Campbell, and no one batted an eye. No one cared because Sophie, whatever, she is a very competent artist and can do everything that she already proved herself in the industry. I love her work. It's absolutely amazing. And she represents a completely different group. And I think that in comics, every group should be represented. Every ethnicity, every sexuality, every person should be represented. But I don't like it when you start to shove that in. I like the organic nature of let the comics reflect what the organic relationships are that we have, right? And I think Sophie Campbell gets no credit for being a completely competent artist in this industry and being transgendered, because they want to push the people that are going to push the political button. They're gonna be the abrasive personalities. Yes, I got me fired up on that one.
Luke, I heard you say. Hold on, Mike. I just want to put this out. Luke said, "Shove it in." That's dirty, priest man. Dirty. Shoving it in when we're talking about this. Randy was raising his hand, Mike, and so was Anthony.
No, you're all good.
So we're doing Randy,
Probably
Anthony,
before.
Mike.
Oh, Anthony, go ahead.
You
Go ahead.
before me.
All right. Few people are going to remember, probably long before everybody's time, but back in the late 60s, early 70s, we had Vaughn Bodē and Jeff Jones.
Oh,
And I don't know if you're familiar with either one of those artists. Vaughn Bodē is an amazing cartoonist, created Cheech Wizard. He did an entire independent comic wearing a dress and talking about his transsexuality. Jeffrey Jones ended up changing his sex and going to conventions as a woman multiple times. Everybody loved him. Everybody still loved him. He was an incredible talent. If you ever get to see the old National Lampoons, he did a strip in there called Idol, which is probably one of the most beautiful pieces of work you could ever, you would ever see, especially back during that period. It was very reminiscent of Reed Crandall or some of the great guys from EC. But the point is that it didn't matter. The work mattered. It was phenomenal work. It was beautiful work.
So, Randy, are you saying? Oh, Anthony, go ahead. I'm sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
I'm just gonna back up kind of what Randy said. In this, I first came to comic book conventions in 2003, and I would ask Dennis, and I was gonna ask Marcus, but he bounced off. But like I never like this is. I think it's a false narrative, man. I really do. I remember going to these shows, and I sat behind the table. We were doing a book, and comic book culture has always been D&D nerd geek culture. I don't ever remember coming across people and ever feeling like these people are like, well, you know what? We don't want gays here, and we don't want blacks here, and we don't want women. Like, I never remember. Like, these are the people. These are your original social outcasts. They don't give a shit. They want as many people to come in and engage in it as possible. So somewhere we got hooked into this false story that comics were exclusive and all this stuff, and I just don't. I think that's wrong, and I don't think that's something that we should accept.
Anthony, you know what it was? Money. When money showed up in comic books because of the movies, everything.
I'll give you that. I will give you that, brother, because that's
I have
thing.
to.
Go
I
ahead.
have to disagree. I have to disagree with that.
You don't think
With what?
that Hollywood money changed comics when people ran in to get jobs here that would never have gone 20 years ago to even?
Oh no, on that you're dead on. That you're dead on. The Hollywood did not change. Well, if Hollywood changed comics, it made them bitter. Because right about the time that the MCU kicked up is right when Marvel was going out of their way to change all of the icons. So you would have people walking in wanting to read Tony Stark as Iron Man. Unless you caught a reprint book, that wasn't Tony Stark in Iron Man. Same thing with Steve Rogers. Same thing with all of these characters. All these characters were shifted right before their major movie hit on purpose, because it was as if Marvel Comics didn't have any respect at all for these retailers or tried to make them any money or give them the opportunity to be popular in their community unless they sold the back issues that all of these movies were based on.
So you think Marvel was disconnected from the actual
Intentionally.
intent? So you think that they've been trying to spike the ball?
Oh, I think I don't think they've been spiking the ball as far as Hollywood's concerned. I think they're spiking the ball as far as pushing an agenda.
That's definitely been an issue of controversy. Well, not even a controversy. It's been a big thing with Marvel for a long time. They've always had kind of this weird reputation after Stan Lee left as the editor-in-chief on how they treat their writers, their editors. There's a reason why they went bankrupt, and they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy back in the early 2000s. Was because of their complete lack of respect for the people that were working there.
Well, I think they were having a problem back in the 2000s, 2000, 2003, back during the Perlman days.
Yeah, and so like the big thing when it comes down to sexuality in books is, for me, is it should be handled organically. But like I feel like the biggest problem is that since and this is what really showcases that it's just this agenda push, is that these characters aren't treated like people. Like you look at a character that is homosexual or lesbian or anything like that in a comic book by one of these SJW writers, and they're not people. They're a walking stereotype of what it means to be those things. They're defined completely by their sexuality. They don't have personality. What's that? And one of the main character of my book Elysian Fields is Achilles, who in modern in the modern scope of narrative would be considered LGBT because of his relationship with Patroclus. And my big thing that I made sure that when I was writing was just treat it like anybody who would go out with somebody. It's not about not everything that you do in your life revolves around your romance. It can serve as a great way to push somebody's objectives and narrative goals, but it shouldn't be the only thing that person gives a shit about.
That's identity politics, little brother.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's what it is.
It is.
Like that's what and it's going on in both companies. DC is less into it than Marvel because they've never really politics is something that they've tried, from what I have seen, that they try to kind of stay away from because their whole deal is it's modern fantasy.
I don't know about that. DC almost stepped in it real bad this year. We don't know how to
absolutely. And that's why I said for the most part, Dan Didio bringing in Bendis and everything that happened over the past 2-3 years, after they finally course corrected with Rebirth, was one of the most frustrating things that I've ever had to see in the industry.
Well, let me change it up here. I got to ask a serious question here. We're going to go around the room. It's a yes or no. Have you ever personally been offended by a character being turned lesbian Luke Stone? Can you even name a character that's been made into a lesbian?
I think they're trying to make Carol Danvers a lesbian, aren't they?
No. I think that was the initial plan, but he's been dating a whole bunch of guys.
I don't give a crap.
So no, you don't. Randy, has any lesbian bothered you? Anthony, has any lesbian bothered you?
Yeah, I've been bothered by lesbians my whole life. I'm tired
in the
of
comics, Anthony.
okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You're in New Orleans, so
Anthony, this is not Chasing Amy. Don't tell
No,
me.
man, I'm just a lesbian trapped in a man's body. So no, it's never bothered me.
Send all hate mail to Anthony. Mike, have you ever been offended by someone who's been turned into a lesbian?
I think that's kind of a interesting question.
Yes or no, Mike? Yes or no?
No, but that's not been done often is the other big thing, is the other caveat.
But actually, it's been done a lot more than you realize. And I'll explain how they do it in a minute. Marcus, have you ever been offended by that?
No.
Okay, Dennis, have you ever been offended by it? Okay, so here's how they've done it. They haven't actually made any character flat out lesbian that I'm aware of in either company. They've made them bi. So they made everyone bisexual. So let me ask you this question. If instead of Wolverine being gay, suddenly he's bisexual, can you accept that more, that suddenly they've opened up the door for more partners? Is that something that you can handle? I think we lost.
Fuck no. No. Again, I think if you take a character, man, it has to somewhat match up with his background. I mean, I laugh when Marcus said what he said. You know what I mean? But it's but that's not, dudes. It's just don't put as a storyteller. If you're telling a story, right? You have a story you're going along. You have a tone you set and a pace you set, right? You do not want to do something that snatches your reader out of the story so much that they go, I'm reading the story. What is going on here? This doesn't make any sense. If you pull them out of the story, it better be intentional. Everything you do better be intentional. So again, the Iceman thing, whatever the case may be, I think if you have not the same problem, if you write it like he's a stereotype, people have problems with it. But I think there's ways and there's characters you can do this with that would be a much smoother transition than to pull something and do a shock value thing that, again, no one's going to accept that shit. Nobody's going to accept that. And so what's your point in doing this? Ultimately, what is your point? And at the end of the day, that's my thing. So
that's what I liked
let's
about
just start yelling.
That's what I liked about the Blood Syndicate comic book back in the day from Milestone, because in Blood Syndicate, you did have not only a lesbian, but you had a transgendered person as well. That was the most diverse group of characters in a comic book that I had seen up to that point, and they all were well written. So that's one of the million things, I guess, or the lucky shot, so to speak. But when the character is well written, it really makes a difference. And then, like you said, Anthony, I joked around about the Wolverine thing because I like giving Wolverine fans a hard time. But you're right. I mean, you can't put him on a path and have him on this concrete path, then all of a sudden say, well, he wakes up one night and he's not this way anymore. And that's tantamount to what they do. It's like, you got 30 years of continuity, and then in year 31 day, they change all of a sudden, and now the guy's black, or he's a woman, or he's gay, or he's bisexual, and we're supposed to forget about the previous 30 years of continuity that happened.
Right. All right.
Because the editors have agendas, Randy.
I do want to. Mike was.
Pardon what? Oh well. Anyway.
Mike, you were trying to say something before you got kicked off about. We were going to go right back to you about the you having a problem with a character made lesbian.
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to have to retract it because the moment that you said making them bi, I just went, crap! I fell into a trap. I got Admiral Akbar. Anyways. But I didn't really have any problems with it. But like my other big thing was, I feel like it's done a lot less with female characters because it's like there's I feel like there is a stigma societally less towards lesbianism and more towards homosexuality between two men. And so when it's done in comics, it's more readily done to men because it's seen as more controversial. Going back even to antiquity, there were even though everybody was messing around with everybody, calling somebody like a lover of men was a huge insult, and somebody had to be dominated in that situation, so it called into question somebody's fortitude and integrity. So I don't feel like I've ever been really offended on any scale. The only thing that is, I wouldn't even say that it offends me, it just makes me really annoyed, is when you have lazy attempts to change any character's sexuality for just the sake of the push. But there have been instances that I've seen people go off the rails for that I've just been like, eh. I remember when DC made Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, gay, and everyone flew a fit about it. And I was just like, Alan Scott hasn't really been relevant for a long time. I love Justice Society of America. I think, Alan Scott's a great character. I have a great time with him. But if you went up to 5 people on the street that were wearing comic book T-shirts and asked them who Alan Scott was, I'm fairly certain you'd get maybe 1 or 2 of them that'd be like, "Oh, I know him." He was a Green Lantern before.
We all knew he was gay though. Before that, his shirt gave that away easily, and
There's no question.
That was rough.
All right, guys, one at a time. One at a time. We're getting that echo now. Now let's change gears a little bit because something. Go ahead, Marcus, but make it quick.
I have to go back to the shirt thing. This is something that DC Comics has done throughout their history. Whenever they want to allude to a character as being gay, they incorporate feminine colors and feminine styles in their uniform. Even Lightning Lad. Lightning Lad had that hint of pink in his uniform because he was supposedly gay. I can think of the character Big Thunder.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you off, Marcus, but we're going.
I just wanted to throw that in there. That's all.
Okay. There is an important question, and I got asked this privately in a messenger when they knew we were going to be doing this because they wanted to talk about this, and I did want to bring it up because our next topic actually kind of covers this. This goes with cancel culture and people being afraid to say something. And the person's a creator. They said to me, "I'm all for diversity, but why does diversity mean there can't be white characters? Why does it mean every character that's white is suddenly bad? And why am I suddenly a bad person for just being white? And that's kind of a message that's being sent out there by people. I've sat in panels and heard middle-aged white men are all the problem. They're the whole problem in the comic book industry. And meanwhile, I'm a middle-aged white man who's creating comic books that I think are diverse, I think are powerful, I think they're well written. And I write a female character that I've been told, I see Anthony, I've been told by other people that I'm not allowed to write a female character because I don't understand the experience. So I throw it out to you guys with this cancel culture and all that. Is it okay for characters to remain who they are? Is there room in diversity for white characters? Anthony, you had your hand raised first. You get the first lick.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous statement. My theory on all of this is this thing they call white guilt, and I'm fascinated by it because I don't have it, and so I try to figure out exactly where this is from, and I really believe this is what you wind up with is people who have not, and I'm from New Orleans, so people who have not been raised, spent time with Black people, I think have white guilt. I myself have played, I've fought, I've smoked, I've done things, we hung out and shit my whole life. I know Black people other than just as waiters and grocery people and shit like that. You know what I mean? And so
but Anthony,
I've been to school with them and everything. So what I'm saying is this whole concept of trying to shame whiteness. It's this bullshit elitist thing of, oh, well, sorry for what we did. We gonna fix it for you. And we gonna hush everybody up so you guys can talk as if these people don't have their own abilities to do what they need to do. I'm like, yo, bro, like, why don't you just back up? They can handle it. They're not handicapped. Just hold up a second. It's going to be okay. But that's what you wind up with. A lot of people who haven't been raised in the same communities see Black people and women or Black people in general different. I'm gonna speak specifically on that because again, I come from a culture where we all one, man. So I think that's part of this nonsense, and I think unfortunately there was a generation that went to sleep. And is not standing up, calling this out, and telling people, "Listen, man, that's silly. That's foolishness."
What is silly? I'm sorry. I'm not following what you mean by the white guilt thing because the question was about blaming. Are you saying that the white people are feeling guilty and they're behind this narrative? Is that what you're trying to say? That this?
Oh, I definitely believe. I learned that from Malcolm X. Watch them white liberals, man. You got to watch them, bro. Yeah, I do because again, I think this is where it's okay. So if the theory is that the system is racist and oppressive, right? So who's the racist and who's the oppressors? The white people. So then who's going to shut the other white people down so that the Black folks and the gays and whatnot can talk, right? So that they can feel like, oh, I'm helping people out. Yeah, I do think that. And I think it emboldens bad faith arguments.
Okay, Marcus, your second hand to go up, and then whoever wants to go next can go next. I think Dennis wanted to say something.
Well, I agree with Anthony, and this is something that is humorous in that you have, as you said with yourself, Rob, you being a white man and you being and the things that you're creating and the guilt that's thrown upon you. But the guilt that's being thrown upon you is by the white people. The thing that you don't have, although you hear the Black voices saying diversity, still, with the exception of the 90s, you have the biggest movement of Black comic book creators ever. So they pretty much are, I say they, but we pretty much are saying, later for that diversity. That's just talk. If we're going to have our stories, we have to write our stories. Yet, meanwhile, this conversation keeps coming up about diversity, and it's brought up by white people talking to other white people about being diverse. So, it's like, we just step back and say, okay, you all go ahead and argue. We're going to make some comic books.
Well, in fairness to my haters, they are a very diverse group. They're not just one color. They are of all colors and all backgrounds. So I don't see that the way that you guys are seeing it. I'm seeing the person who threatened to call Child Protective Service on me because I have a sign that says free hugs and spanks. Guess what? He wasn't white. So hate comes from all corners, kids. Don't fool yourself to think that it's owned by one skin color. Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, just I disagree with the guy who posed the question. I think we're all like-minded. I mean, diversity is for everybody, not excluding white people, not excluding any race or creed. It's for everybody. So for him to say that, maybe he feels guilty about something.
No, he felt that he was being forced out because he would go to a comic book panel nowadays about diversity, and you have a lot of people say it's the fault of the middle-aged white man. And I've been in New York Comic Con sitting in a panel and heard that said. And I remember looking around because people were looking at me because obviously I was one of the few white guys who showed up to that panel and people were kind of looking at me. I just shrugged my shoulders like oops. You know, and it is a narrative. It is a narrative that's out there. And I don't know if it's owned. What's that, Dennis? I'm sorry.
I know, you say that's narrative, but I've never felt that. Like, I had no idea that people felt that way, or like they felt excluded from the cultures. I thought it was for everybody.
Randy, can you? I know that you guys have covered this on Indie Vault. Have you heard this narrative?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just the person who sent in the question. It's not just because I guess again. You have to understand, Dennis, and I'm going to put this out there.
Again, that falls back to that agenda, because in my mind, we were on a really good path for diversity. Back in the 70s, introduce, and let me swap back here. I'm sorry, I was working, but we
never be sorry for working.
The cool thing about Marvel back during the 70s and 80s is that they were already working to diversify. And they were doing, in my mind, a pretty good job of it, but I have a perspective that doesn't reflect, everybody else's. I thought Milestone was awesome. The wife has bought all of the books, and it was great, except they had a really horrible coloring system. But that's off the topic. I mean, just muddy and you could go back through now and recolor those Milestones and put them back out on the newsstands. Everybody would think they were great. And they probably sell as good as they did back then. But the problem was perceived in the early 2000s, like I said, when Gemis come on and they started intentionally going out of their way to hire people because of their ethnicity or ism, as opposed to their talent. You wrote a young adult novel? Well, come over here. You can write funny books.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them talented. That doesn't make them remotely aware of the art form. Where the art form needs every perspective and every possible viewpoint, but they need them to be talented. They need them to be skilled. And I love reading comics, all kinds of comics, every type of comics. I could show you in my collection. I got just about everything. Well, I won't say everything, but there's a wide variety, as long as there's quality books in there. That's what makes it entertaining, is for it to be quality. It doesn't have to fit an agenda or anything like that. Some of the best propaganda books are really well written. Yeah. But that's not Marvel. That's not right now.
No.
And
that's not modern day mainstream. That's not what that is.
Anthony, I'll get to you in 1 second.
Look at Watchmen.
I just have one thing to say is I can vouch for Randy's comic book collection. His Iceman collection, since he came out, is fantastic. He has every issue.
Oh yeah, every issue.
I do want to say to Dennis,
I didn't buy it. I can't read that modern Marvel stuff. I've tried. I've gone to Ollie's just like everybody else and bought their $2.99 books.
I do want to say to Dennis, I can just tell you as the experience I've had, and that a lot of times we can only talk from our own experience, right? I have posted against Marcel Dupree because he was taking advantage of creators. Can you guess what the first couple rounds of personal attacks towards me were?
No idea.
That you were against fat people.
No, I'm racist. I am a racist human being.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
That was the first thing, and it was spread around. And I had friends coming up to me and telling me that these people who are below my weight class, and let's just be honest, we're talking about real amateurs in the field. We're going around trying to get people to come out and cancel me. The problem is that when you try to cancel a motherfucker and you fail, everyone else is like, I'm not going after him. He's the fucking devil. And that's why I became the Indie Devil, because people will say nasty shit. Now, I'm sure you get the same shit. I'm sure you've seen ugly shit. I'm sure everyone on this panel has seen ugly shit. So no one's safe from ugly shit. They're dumb, ignorant fucking people in the world. And it's always going to be that way. Marcus, you had your hand up? Or did I see the hand go up?
Briefly, well, I keep thinking about the underground comics movement back in the 70s and the importance of that movement, because this was a group of creators who didn't want to be restricted by the Comics Code Authority, who wanted to put out the material. They wanted to put out this guy named Larry Fuller. He had friends that were gay that enjoyed comic books, so he created a comic book called Gay Heartthrobs, and that ran for like 16 issues. He also created this comic called White Horror Funnies. I mean, they were unleashed. They had no restrictions, and they created what they wanted to create. And I believe it's going to take that kind of movement now in order to get all the PC, SJW, ABCDEFG people, I mean, to get them out of things. Because they are like the Comics Code Authority. Like, if your comic does not
really are.
Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting point.
Our agenda, if your comic does not look the way you want it, if it isn't like how we say it should be, then we won't publish it. We'll go against it. We're going to talk about you on social media or whatever. So it's going to take a big, strong movement like the underground comics movement to come and get rid of all these people and retake comics.
You must be close to my age, Marcus.
Yeah.
I hate to call you old, buddy, but
Michael,
that whole underground era, unfortunately, is completely forgotten or misunderstood by modern, younger comic readers. Because back then they thought, oh my goodness, these people were all deviants. What were they doing? What were they thinking? Oh my goodness, this is terrible. Or they're terribly triggered by the content.
That's why I write horror comics now.
Yeah, or they were without realizing they were out there pushing boundaries for a reason. They were poking that bear as hard as they could over and over again to get a rise out of people.
Now I know Michael is trying to say something, but remember, kids, the underground movement all starts with this. It all starts with this.
Pretty much.
Don't give a fuck. Go ahead, Michael.
So I think that's actually a super interesting point that I luckily did not really have to deal much with Comic Code Authority. I am probably one of the younger people on this this panel, but I obviously grew up reading older books and what have you, and so it's really interesting to kind of put that in perspective and see, the way that you have industry pros right now. Even a simple comment of constructive criticism can set one of these guys off. And if we do that, you're screwed. Like they will go out of their way, and it just blows my mind. I'm just like, you've gotten to the top, and you're gonna kick some guy that offered you one small critique because you could have written this scene better. Like, really? And to bring it back to the initial question on can diversity exist with white characters? It's like, as everyone here has already said a million times, diversity includes everyone. Yes, there needs to be do I think that there needs to be more diverse characters? Of course. The answer to that is creating them.
Oh, sorry again.
Oh my goodness.
Did you just lose toilet privileges?
Yeah, I did. They're coming to take me away, haha.
All right, well, that's great.
It seems our governor can't help but remind us every half hour that we're to stay home till the end of the month.
Fun.
Jesus Christ.
Michael, you bring up some great points, and I know this is going to make Randy happy, because we're going to talk about the demonizing of Comicsgate, which really could be the beginning of a new underground movement. And a lot of people have demonized the Comicsgate community because, yes, they have done some dumb shit. There's no way getting around the fact that Comicsgate has said some dumb things, has done some dumb things, and has had some people out in front say things. But they also have apologized. They have also tried to talk about the times that when they were making some of those comments, they felt very attacked. And when you're feeling attacked, and I can tell you this from experience, before all this came to the mainstream, like you guys are seeing it, we saw this on a fetish site begin. A lot of this propaganda was almost practiced on our fetish site, and then we saw it rolled out to the nation. It was crazy. It was like they almost took over our fetish site just to attack and troll people, and then we saw it explode into the regular media, and it was like, wow, this is crazy. So I almost understand being attacked and being told nothing you do is right, and people saying nasty things to you and poking you to say dumb shit in return. And it's taken me a long time in my life. I've said things that I don't regret because at the time when I said it, I had to have said it to learn. And if I didn't say it and I didn't have those stupid arguments, I would have never grown as a human being. And that's what we forget in this culture now, is that we have to go through some awful shit and say some awful shit to learn some great stuff. You have to be broken down to become, again, a better person. That's why when James Gunn was like, yeah, I said some shit a long time ago on Twitter, I said, sorry already. Fire me, cool. I'm going to go over here and work with DC. You do you. Oh, you want me back? You're going to have to wait now. I respect him for doing that. That was super awesome. And I'm going to open up to you guys. Comicsgate, why are they only the ones being called the boogeyman? Why aren't we calling out all the people who are saying that we're not customer service representatives in the comic field? We create comics and fuck them. They're going to do what we create.
I honestly don't think that, so I think that the big, if I can chime in on this, I think that the big thing with Comicsgate is, and I know that I actually talked to Luke about this here earlier today, I feel that deep down, when you look at what Comicsgate is supposed to stand for, and the things that they are trying to push, 90% of the people that read comics would agree. The problem is when your most vocal people make asses of themselves frequently, and don't act with decorum. At the end of the day, when you are the face, when you are the loudest members of a movement, you're the face. And while, yes, there are people do dumb shit, and yes, they've apologized here and there. It's still one of those things that people are a little bit hesitant to get involved and call themselves Comicsgate because they don't necessarily want to be associated with the people who made it what it is. I feel that all in all, everybody would agree. We want stories that have good narratives and that are entertaining. We don't want to be pandered to. We don't want this. We don't want that. That's 90% of the consumer base of comics. But everyone is a little bit hesitant to throw themselves the Comicsgate label.
Well, Mike, you don't have to call yourself Comicsgate. This isn't a tattoo secret club.
No,
there are a lot of people I know who support it that don't do it. Anthony's arm's going to wear out, so I'm going to switch to him. But just so everyone knows, every one of you knows someone who's in Comicsgate. Yeah. They're just smart enough not to wear the tattoo because you're thinking of Ethan Van Sciver. Is that how you say his name?
Ethan Van Sciver, Richard C. Meyer.
Even he has some brilliance that we're not looking at with the amount of money he makes on Cyberfrog. And we've had our industry broken apart into pieces instead of all being together and playing in the center and creating awesome books. Because that's what happens when you bring in a melting pot in the center of mutually different ideas. You get better stories. Anthony, take it away.
My idea that I would have to say that the reason they're getting attacked is because it's successful. They're successful and they're scaring the mainstream because they're taking market shares. And I will have to dispute what Mike said. I think most people don't want to claim Comicsgate because they're afraid to be attacked. I don't think it has anything to do with. I'm not saying it doesn't. There's not some things, but I will tell you, I've worked with a few people, and they basically, had to use fake names because they were afraid to be blackballed. Not because they were, about Comicsgate, but because of the opposition to it.
Yeah.
And that I spent a lot of time, a lot of hours combing through all of this stuff because I wanted to know what it was. I listened to your boy Zach quite often. I sat through some boring live streams and all kind of stuff like this. The idea that Richard C. Myers is a white nationalist, alt-right, that's not true. It's just not true.
Well,
completely.
Let's
and
try
so
to
you
stay on the surface of the topic without getting too much into people's names, because most of
okay, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
we're deep into it. I do want to switch to Dennis. I think he raised his hand. Dennis,
right.
Comicsgate, thoughts on it, and then Marcus.
To be honest, I only see like the negative things about Comicsgate. And like you said, I feel like Ethan Van Sciver, I think he's like the ringleader of it. But like, yes, he's done some negative things. Yes, he's been accused of bullying other creators, other people. But it's just like, it should be looked at holistically, not just a negative aspect of it. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I want to go to Randy for a history lesson because he's my historian, and I'm not kidding. Me and Randy, once this is all done, are going to do history of comics.
Oh no, I'm ahead of you on that. I'm sorry.
Oh, he's already starting without me. So
I'm finishing some commercial work, and then I'm getting back on my book, dude. But yeah, what do you want to know?
Comicsgate. There's a lot of confusion of even what it is and how it began. Clearly, everyone thinks that Ethan just decided to say "fuck you" to everyone.
That's totally intentional. That's completely intentional. Brought on by the mainstream that are going around and tagging these people, these bigots, these N-word, the second N-word, sorry.
What's the second N-word?
Nazi.
Oh, no. Nazi.
Third N-word is nerf herder.
Nerf herder.
Don't forget.
Of course.
Don't you call me a nerf herder. Don't you?
Out there, they branded these guys apparently solely because they voted for Trump. And then after they hounded them enough, caught them saying things that they can take as far out of context as they possibly can. Oh my goodness, did you know, have you seen Ethan's signature? It's a swastika. Oh my God. Look at his signature. It's a swastika.
All right, so can you clarify?
Ridiculousness. Ridiculousness. You had, like I said, that agenda that started about 2000, 2003, keeps building up. New people get hired in. They decide that they can push their agenda. They bring in characters to push their agenda. Then everybody decides that they have to vote a particular way. And when somebody who's proud in their political affiliation goes, I voted for the other guy.
Well, can I ask?
Boom! You're castrated. You're castrated professionally, and you're castigated, and you're tossed out of the mainstream. You are pushed out.
Right.
I don't want to work with this guy. He voted for this guy. He's a bigot.
Well, can I ask?
Bigot. It's not that the guy was a bigot. The guy he voted for was a bigot. This person suddenly becomes a bigot because he voted for that person because he didn't want to vote for the other person. Sorry, am I getting too hard on my soapbox here?
No, I want to ask you a few questions
It's a big box.
I want to actually ask a few questions that were directly from me saying Comicsgate isn't the boogeyman everyone makes it out to be. And I was actually accused of being pro Comicsgate when I wanted to have a conversation. Now, one of the things I was told was that EVS has created the new Mein Kampf book.
Oh, yeah. I want to see people prove it. Pull it up. Let's see it. Let's read it.
Man,
I spent months, just like Anthony did, going through. I got pulled into it from Varian because I was out. I was creating my own paper. I'm going to be Larry for a minute here. I'm going to pull out. I was doing my own paper for 10 years. I got out of comics direct market because I got fed up having to deal with Diamond. Diamond drove me nuts. I mean, I was right there with the phone receiver banging on the counter asking this guy to make some sort of logical sense for Diamond. So
Don't worry, Randy, they're driving everyone nuts right now, too.
You got to do your own. You got to figure out how to do your own thing. And my thing for 10 years was creating a newspaper that I could give away to folks. But anyway, Varian goes, you need to listen to Diversity in Comics. This guy kind of makes sense. He's talking about comics and he's talking about the nuts and bolts in comics and how the editors are insane and they don't know their jobs and there's misspellings and there's all this craziness going on. I said, comics aren't like that, dude. comics have some so-called competent people up there, though I lost a lot of respect for them. The last time I went to San Diego and tried to push some stuff, I ran into a Marvel editor. I tried to pitch him some proposals, and he actually looked me in the eyes and said, "Do we actually own that character?" And I was like, dude, it gets pretty bad when I know your business better than you do. But anyway, I started listening to Diversity in Comics. Then I found Comic Book Pro Secrets. Then I started listening to all of these other guys. And yeah, there's some wacky dudes out there. There's some guys out there, and there's some guys out there that were Comicsgate, that were too political, and they've got pushed aside, and they're no longer in with that group. There's some guys out there that were super right-wing religious conservatives, that were bigots and were homophobes, that have been pushed out of that group. And when I was reading or listening to all of this stuff, I'm like, Comicsgate, what a stupid name. I don't want Comicsgate. Sucks. That's a stupid name. It's a label that gate means controversy. Gate means scandal. And this isn't a scandal. This is comics, dude. All I want is good comics. And it's kind of narrowed down. The middle part of that is Richard Meyer, Ethan, the group that follow that are aligned with him. War Campaign is something different. War Campaign's a bunch of immature brats that like to do memes of people with dongs on their foreheads, and they think it's funny. They're like the Beavis. They're literally the Beavis and Butthead cadre of the group. They're the little immature brats that are still in junior high going, "This funny, man." And they pick on people. Get a sense of humor.
But wait,
everybody eventually is going to run across a meme, especially with War Campaign's help, where they have a dong on their forehead. It's going to happen.
But Randy, they're evil. They're against.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. They're evil. But that's because that's what these mainstream people have found. The true people in comics history here, the people that are going to shine once the books are written, and hopefully I'm writing one. Gail Simone, Mark Waid, Tony Isabella, all of these guys that are so insanely desperately branding Comicsgate as evil. That's the problem. Anybody that goes out that has an independent mind, that's a free thinker, that starts actually looking at what's going on here. That's why I've told people point blank, look, dude, get off your freaking high horse and get an education as far as this stuff goes. Stop with the dogma. Stop with the blinders. Take them off. And you don't have to be Comicsgate to love comics and you are good comics. You don't have to be anti-Comicsgate to love good comics. But you can't deny the fact that there are people out there with crowdfunding campaigns that's making more money on one book than what people working in the industry make in a year. Yeah, and they're out there, they're not out there dragging people away from the retail shops. Those people aren't the main people in the crowdfunding industry. The people that are buying these crowdfunding books are these people that got the bad taste in their mouth around 2000, 2003, around in that decided the comics weren't for them anymore. As all of these crazy people will tell you, we didn't make these comics for you. And they push people out. The people that have been pushed out still want to read good comics. Right. So they see somebody who looks like they're doing a good comic and they're coming back in. And whether that guy's labeled a Comicsgater or not, they've discovered Indiegogo, they've discovered Kickstarter, and they want back in. Look at how much money Todd McFarlane has made since yesterday.
Did 700,000 or something? One
action figure.
Yes.
Market.
He's not Comicsgate. He did an awesome action figure off of an awesome character that people remembered from the 80s that had to have it because not only do they know there's quality there, but they know the packaging is amazing and the price point is incredible. If you walked into a retail shop to pick up that same figure or a comic shop, $125. Easy. Here it is, $40, and it comes in a cardboard case. And you see this cardboard box. This cardboard box is actually going to be bigger because I'm making his cape bigger.
And it's like what, $80 for him to sign it too?
Yeah.
Hold on. As much as we all like Todd McFarlane, Marcus has been patiently waiting to make.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get on a soapbox real easy when you start talking to me about history, guys. I'm sorry. But it's so funny because I kind of walked in. I won't shut up, will I? I'm kind of like Steve Rogers. I've been in
It keeps
an iceberg
going.
for 10 years. Come back and look.
My
and,
man.
and the market's crazy. You know, I'll be quiet. Sorry.
Marcus, you better. Sorry, I'm start talking.
Well,
Jump in.
I guess I represent the community of people that don't give a shit about Comicsgate. We don't follow mainstream. That's a bunch of mainstream BS that's going on. I belong in the community that we make comic books. We produce comic books. I guess that's because, like Randy said, due to our age, the influence of the underground comics, because these were a bunch of guys that resisted all of this stuff we're talking about now. They resisted that. They didn't want any part of that. They wanted to make comics, and they wanted to make comics their way, and they wanted to get comics out to the people who they knew were reading comic books, wanting good stories, and didn't want to get tied up in politics and agendas and any of that other stuff. So I guess I represent that community because I care very little about Comicsgate. I don't care if this, I do not care if Ethan, Rick, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, whoever is a bigot. I'm concerned about the customer, the consumer that's buying my book.
Yep.
But Marcus, the consumer is stupid and wrong.
Well, if you have a creator, if you have even a comic book company that thinks in that manner, then they're going to drive away their customers, and their customers are going to come to me or Anthony or Randy or Luke. They're going to come to somebody else.
Yep.
So, why get in the middle of two dogs fighting when you can stand to the side and just do whatever you got to do? Because I like I said, I just don't care about it. And there's a great number of us who we really don't care because we are resisting mainstream comics as it is.
Okay,
So,
fair. Good point. I do want to thank Valent for sponsoring today's show. Anthony, go for it. Anthony.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm going to tell you something, Marcus, and I felt the same way, man. And I'm telling you, after I followed your boy Zach for a minute, it changed because what you saw was in Indiegogo, you had that community that was already existed long before Ethan and all of this shit even happened. What really kicked a lot of bullshit off, man, was this little dude, your boy Zach, and he's over there saying, look, this is what's up with the mainstream media. Y'all need to do better. And so they called him out and said, well, look, you think you can do better? Why don't you make a book? So the little dude said, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to go make my own book. And he went and made his own book, went and hired artists, did the whole thing, bro. And so then he goes over here and he says, okay, Antarctic Press, I want y'all to carry my book. Antarctic Press says, no problem. We're going to carry your book. So then Mark Waid goes to Antarctic Press, and the story goes that he basically told him, he leaned on him and blew on him and said, if you put this book out, I'm gonna put it out there that you support racism, bigot, and all this kind of shit like this, and had that shit canceled. That guy right now is in court against Mark Waid for tortious interference, and that is what sparked. That's what sparked. Because then he went to Indiegogo, launched that book, and that book made $300,000, which had really never been done before, and that just sparked this whole thing. And now the shit you're seeing now, that shit has been going on for years. This is like a 2 or 3 year thing that now it's just making it to the public. But this shit has been going on. People who were independent creators working on crowdfunders, having it out with the mainstream industry, saying, doing this to the mainstream industry, and then the mainstream industry going, oh yeah, well guess what? We're going to shut you down by basically calling you out on social media, by telling everybody all of this shit so you can't make money. And that's what wound up happening. Now, and so Comicsgate ultimately started as a consumer movement against mainstream comics. The shit that you kind of see today is the blood and the fighting you see in the streets. That's what you're seeing right now.
We're going to switch to Randy in a second, but I will point out this. He also would have never made that money if he hadn't been blown up the way he was.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. He did get
That's
the
the
benefit.
whole point. That's the whole point to all of this. If Mark Waid had been quiet, if he had said, we're going to let the free market sort this out. Because how big of a publisher
Correct.
is Antarctica?
Correct.
They're
Not very
really
big.
small. They're really small.
Right.
If Jawbreakers had come out through Antarctic, Richard would have hardly made any money. He'd be struggling just as hard as you and I are struggling. Probably making less money than you and I are making. If Mark Waid had shut up and just let the free market do what it was supposed to do. But he walked in and all these other people, your Simones and your Antoses and who knows who else. There's a list. Some said there was a blacklist for a while, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere because I'd be interested in seeing that because I came in on this late. But if all of those people had just said, we're going to let the market sort this out. And we don't care if you vote who you voted for. You do okay, comics. We're just going to be quiet and let you keep working. Oh, maybe they'll quietly shun him and say, I don't want to work with him because I don't believe the same way that he believes. And just tell their editor, I don't want to work with that guy, and not have been vocal up on social media. Comics would be completely different right now. And it wouldn't have nearly the money coming in the way that it's coming in now. These people changed, by these, Waid, Simone, Antos, changed the market. They are the ones responsible. Ethan was just trying to feed his family. He was trying to figure out how to make money. Just like Richard wanted to do comics. He just wanted to do comics. Oh, I can't do comics from Antarctica. I guess I have to crowdfund this thing. But here I've got a YouTube site where I've got so many thousands of people listening. I'm going to push my book up on there, and guess what? Boom, he gets $3,000, $4,000, $100,000. Ethan's got a big reputation coming off of DC going, I've been persecuted by these people, something terrible. I'm going up on Indiegogo, and I hope I can do something. Boom. 1.2 million off of Blood Honey alone. Never would have happened if these people had just said, you know, we don't like you, but we're not going to go out and try to ruin your life because of it. We don't like who you voted for, but we're not going to go out and ruin your life because of it. If they'd have stayed quiet, it would have been a whole different market. But thank goodness, you know, because now there's people out there trailblazing, showing that there's hard money out there in them crowdfunding. There's gold in them there hills. We just have to go out and figure out how to mine it. That's
now,
it.
I do want to point out we're hitting a 2-hour mark.
Marcus said part 2.
Hold on, we're at a 2-hour mark. If anyone has to leave, I'm offering them to leave. I'm not a person to end natural conversations. This is not a place for safe spaces today. This is a real conversation with open dialogue, and I want it to continue at this point. So I'm not kicking anyone out. I can stay on for 3 hours. So if we stay on another hour, it's fine. I just want to give everyone an ability to get out. If they have to, does anyone have to leave at this point?
I do.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself. I always enjoyed talking with fellow creators. One day, Randy, I need to find out how old you are because I believe we might have been in the same playground together.
I'm an old man.
All right. Tell them where they can find you then, Marcus.
All right. You can find me Facebook, Marcus Roberts, Twitter, Marcus Roberts. You can find my comics at adventcomics.com / Unbound Realms, and Mississippi Zombies at calibercomics.com.
Oh,
Thank
cool.
you, Marcus. And Luke,
From
where can they
Caliber,
find
that's
you?
awesome.
They can find me at lukestonestudios.com. They can also find me on Twitter at Luke Stone Studio. And then you can find me over on Facebook at Luke Stone Studios. I do have a Kickstarter going right now for Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, issues 1 through 5, the complete first saga. Would encourage you to go by there. I've got another 9 days on that. We've got some new perks up there and a brand new video based off of some Kickstarter pause info that I got and feedback that I got this last week. So that's how you can find me.
And Dennis Knight.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Mr. Knight Writer, WRITER. Knight is spelled with a K. I'm also on Facebook, Dennis Knight. My fan page is Cross Comic Book, and I'm also on Instagram, DEE Knight Writer. It's been great talking to you guys.
Thanks for being on, dude. Sorry about the technical stuff.
No worries, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Later, brother. See you later. All right. So then there was 4.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go as well.
Probably should too. I'm hearing my wife walking back.
I know that's what just happened to me.
All right, guys.
Oh,
So,
yeah, man.
Like she didn't know I was going to jump up online either.
I
so.
know mine didn't either.
all right, let's let them out quick. Tell them where they can find you.
Go ahead, Randy.
No, you go, Anthony.
All right. You can find me at kiddestructo.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook under Kid Destructo or under Anthony Figaro.
And Randy.
I Facebook is Randy Zimmerman. I Twitter is Randy Zim. You can always find me up there, or at least get a hold of me on there, or use that Gmail address that's right there. It's my main Gmail box. Other than that, it's Zim Geek channel on YouTube, ZIMMGEEK. And there's new content coming, I swear there is.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us
Rob.
on, man.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having us
Rob.
on.
Always good to see you, Randy.
Good to see you, Anthony. Take care. Sorry for the soapboxing, Rob.
You're good. That was just what it was, right?
It was good, man. It was good.
Get me up there. I can talk all day about this stuff. So. All
All
right,
right,
man.
Mike.
Take
Shut
care.
up.
Stay healthy. We'll see
See
you.
you later, guys. Stay healthy. It's just us, Mike.
Woo!
We,
Go
we-
on the distance, man. I'll make it to 3 hours with you. I got another hour to go.
So let's talk about it. What about the future of comics? We're at a point, a weird, awkward point, where everything is on pause now. We are at the biggest, I call it the great pause, because everything is stopped. What do you think comes next? We've talked about all these complicated issues, and clearly there wasn't enough time in this conversation. Everyone was vibing to get on. It was a very spirited, and I want to point this out right now, very respectful conversation today. Very
I'm honestly super impressed. Like this is the kind of things I feel like if the Comicsgate discussion had started off like something like this, where you had pros and people coming up, just sitting down, having a moderator being like, yo, shut up, you're being disrespectful, and making sure that people got their points across, that the industry would be in a better place. But like at the end of the day, what I think is going to be happening is right now, I see the main line falling out. Diamond Distributions cut off, literally shot mainstream comics in the face by canceling out the push of new books.
Well, they're doing that weird thing where they're sending them to your house now.
Dude, I don't even know. Like it's really sad because like what they should have done is, and I know that I've got my local stores, and all of my local stores have literally opened up delivery services to accommodate for COVID, for all of the stuff going on right now, and try and do their best to make sure that they're still making the money so that they can be open when everything passes. And by doing that, by not distributing to these stores, Diamond has completely screwed them over. And it's really going to cause the question is, can we if the main line is still willing to go with Diamond, can you really trust the main line to keep your stores open? And so I honestly think that what is going to happen here is you got people bored with nothing to do for a while. You're going to have people that get creative and start coming up with their own ideas and do what I did. I decided to take advantage of, and granted, I've been working on this on my comic for a while, but things just finally started to come together, and I decided that with the moment that Diamond announced that they were no longer going to be putting out new books, I was like, there's no point in trying to pitch this to somebody. I'll just do it on my own. I mean, the results speak for themselves. We've had a very we've got over 50 days to go, and we already have so much in contributions. I can't be thankful enough to everyone that's come out and supported it. And I think that's honestly the future of the industry is just these crowdfunded books, and like the signs are there even in the professional side. Sean Gordon Murphy just announced that he's doing an Indiegogo. That is his own comic book. I think he said it's a a 4 or 5 issue miniseries in a trade paper. People are starting to realize that there is more money to be had in crowdfunding because people have a lot more faith in it at this point because they've gotten consistently good products. Like I've read both of Spotto Delgado's Jawbreakers books, and they're solid. I've had some issues with them, but they're better than like 3/4 of what's out on market. Like it's tough going into a comic book store and really wanting to help out my local store, and there's only like 5 books that I keep up with because there isn't much that I care about, and that sucks. I grew up with comics. You know, comic books were the thing that as a kid made me feel like I could swing from buildings and fight hundreds of bad guys with my small group of friends in a game of pretend. You know, this is a big part of me growing up, and but I do think that the way that we're going to come out of this is you're going to see these mainline industry big two. They're like the iconicness of their brand will always be there, but they were already not doing too great before this, but everyone's taking a hit.
That is true. And honestly, I really do feel, and this comes back, let me get us both on the screen. This comes back to the fact that we as a industry have had money suddenly pour in, and you had a bunch of people show up who really don't have the passion for comics, and you had a bunch of people, and look, I'm not going to frame it as a negative thing. A bunch of creators said, hey, we are not diverse enough as the publisher and as the people in charge. They said, let's go out of our normal caste system. Let's just stop hiring the people we know from our group. Let's go to a bigger avenue. Let's reach further. And let's see who we can bring in here. And maybe they did bring in people and went, you know what? You're gay. Maybe you could do a good gay character. Let's bring you in to write a gay story. And you're a female, and we want a better female perspective. So we're going to give you the job as a female. And some of those people came in and they rocked the industry. They came out to be superbly talented people.
Absolutely.
So there's not all negative to this. I think the negative came when fingers got pointed. Look, I cannot like Marvel Comics. That's my right. My money, I vote with my money. And if they're not getting me to vote for them, then that's on them. That's not on an industry. That's what they're choosing to do by not making things I want to read. But when you start threatening me because I write a fetish book, and this really happened to me, and my friends who were around me at the time saw it, how I got attacked. Every one of my posts were reported. They tried to get me kicked off of Facebook, and they spread rumors about ugly rumors I won't even repeat because they're just not, and I don't mind cursing on this, obviously.
Of course not.
Ugly. That I won't repeat them now. Were said about me. And when you see your character completely destroyed, and there were some people who stuck up for me, but a lot of other people just turned their back and act nonchalantly. And a lot of that caused the persona of the Indie Devil to come out because people had to learn not to mess with me. And I mean, a couple bridges in the process, but I made sure people knew I'm not a type to fuck with. And I say it all the time. You tried to cancel me. You failed. I survived. And they don't know what to do with me. And I feel that's what Comicsgate is, and that's what Underground Comics is. You tried to end us. You failed.
Now we're back putting up our backbone. And you know, the entertainment industry as a whole is super cutthroat. Like everybody tries to pretend to be your friend right up front, and then when shit hits the fan, that's when you find out who your real friends are and who the people that are literally just doing it to save face are. You know, like I completely get what you're saying. Is like it's just when it comes down to the industry, it's this really sad thing where it's been held up by like the 2 major companies for years, and so the way that it moves forward is those 2 companies fall. And the smaller companies will do what they can, but ultimately this is going to become a creator-driven industry at this point, which is good. I mean, that's how it started. Was just people coming together to create characters, and Stan Lee told the story a million times and how he did the Fantastic Four, and how his wife was just like, well, write a book the way that you want to write it, and then if it works, great. If it doesn't and you get fired, well, you were planning on quitting anyway. And that's what this all should be about. It's about telling stories that we feel it can connect with an audience that we feel are that is genuine to who we are as artists. And that's what I think the indie and underground comic book industry is great at. Like, I've only been a part of it for about, like, I'd say a week at this point. And the amount of help and everything that I've gotten from everyone in the community and showing me, like, oh, this is how you do this is how you do that. We talked a little bit before the everything began about how Luke had showed me a lot of this stuff with publishing, money that I was going to be dumping down the drain by going through things that I had looked up online, trying to do my own research. Like at the end of the day, yes, this is an industry, but everybody in the indie comics industry does have each other's backs. And today when I got paid, I went and I backed like 3 or 4 different campaigns. It's awesome. And this is how I see the industry growing, is it's going to be pretty rough once everything kind of comes back to normal, but then, from the ashes, we will rise.
See, I got to be honest. I don't think we're ever going back to normal in comics. I think the Humpty is falling off the wall. I do want to mention a few people were making comments. We made a choice in the chat room early to not take any comments directly from anyone today. And that was more towards any hateful rhetoric.
Yeah.
So we didn't have it piped in directly to this. We weren't ignoring you on purpose. We were just trying to keep the show moving without anyone seeing anything that was a nasty comment towards them. I think I even disabled the comments. I'm surprised Pyramid Night got through. I thought I disabled the comments on YouTube for a while we were live, just because we didn't want to deal with anyone getting insulted. Because sometimes there's some ugly comments made. Credit to YouTube. YouTube has gotten rid of some ugly comments over the last week of some people saying some really dumb things. So I give credit to YouTube. Facebook's not as advanced. This was a difficult conversation, and I think we really had a great amount of creators coming together in this. Sarah, who just is commenting now on it, and I will say this, Sarah has actually read my book, said, that's crazy, Rob. Your fetish books are great, and there's nothing wrong with them. In fact, I want to read more. And that's the thing. I've had a lot of stuff graded and read without anyone ever reading it, and I'm very cautious. I didn't like what X-Men happened to X-Men. I actually read the comics. And I was turned off by it. So when I speak about my fandoms, I only speak after seeing what's available. I don't like the New Warriors thing. I think it's clickbait in comic books. And I think it's
oh, man.
Yeah. It's
New
Warriors. Don't get me wrong. I
was surprised that, going back, I was surprised that wasn't something that was talked about when
everyone's doing it. It's so derivative right now. Everyone's had a comment about the New Warriors, and the book hasn't come out. So we're putting something up that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like it's the same thing when you're looking at, like, there is a degree of like leeway you have to give for like experiencing it, but there is the same thing where like you see like set photos or you watch trailers and you can just be like, either that movie's not going to be for me or that movie is going to be bad.
About Birds of Prey? What Birds of Prey? What?
Oh goodness! Oh, don't even get me started. I'm not touching Birds of Prey with a 50-foot.
Well, I want to watch it. In all honesty, a lot of my friends have said it is watchable, and I will watch it. That's the thing. I watched Thundercats Roar. I regret it every minute. I regret it every single minute. But I'll tell you what, they were great on the Teen Titans. They did this special crossover where they were kind of deliberately trolling fans.
Yeah,
and they had them show up, and Cartoon Network is trying so hard. No, this is good. No, your animation's crap. There's a difference between even the Teen Titans Go. They put in quality art. They have great voice actors. You go over to the other show, and the art's just so jarring. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
don't doubt it.
it's just, I mean, it's pandering to a person who has the IQ of my shoe size.
Well,
more than anyone.
and like that's a whole other thing. Like, so to backtrack to Birds of Prey, what I will say on the film,
Did you watch it? But to be fair,
I have seen the movie. I saw the movie. I wrote a review on it. If you want, I can post it up in the comments. And I actually even did a whole piece comparing it to the Harley Quinn TV show on
DC Universe.
DC Universe for Up Your Geek, which is an up and coming news site. So like the thing with Birds of Prey is I'd say the first 20 to 30 minutes are really good. The way that they handle Harley's breakup with the Joker, everything like that, is done very well. The movie falls to crap once everything else gets introduced. And the more that you think about it, the more you can start poking holes in it. Like, you're not going to have something this crazy happen in Gotham and Batman have no presence at all. And don't get me wrong, I know that everyone's going to go, oh, well, they couldn't have Batman in the movies. Like, yes, film is a visual medium, but like in any story, a character doesn't have to be shown for their presence to be felt.
But wait a minute, wasn't Batman just with the Justice League on another planet? Isn't that how they answered it?
No, they didn't answer it at all. Batman is not mentioned once. There's a funny quip about Bruce Wayne being cute, and that's why she names her hyena Bruce, which made me ill. But like,
She does that in the comic.
no, the comics she has two hyenas, and I'm blanking on their names.
No, later. There is it's from the White Knight, I believe.
No, White Knight is based off of the animated series. She has two hyenas, and they have the same name that they do.
No, White Knight's where the Joker's the good guy.
Yeah, it's based on Sean Gordon Murphy doing his own it's his own universe, but it's heavily inspired by Batman the Animated
And
Series.
I've been lied to because I was told that Bruce thing was actually from White Knight.
No, it's not. I do not think so. I could be wrong, but I love that book. I loved White Knight. I loved Curse of the White Knight. If Sean Gordon Murphy somehow sees this, you're like you are one of my favorite Batman writers. Awesome. Like, I really enjoyed both of those books. I've reread White Knight many times, and Curse of the White Knight I've only been through once, but forgive me, the final issue came out like literally 2 weeks ago. No, like, that didn't come from there. It is just, there was so much stuff that it didn't feel natural. And then on top of that, the way that they tried to handle Harley's narrative, it felt hollow. You can't do a movie about this woman becoming empowered to be her own self and make her a victim the entire film. Like, there has to be a point. There has to be a point where she rises to the occasion and becomes her own person. And I don't feel like that ever happens in the movie. I feel like there are times where they try to do that, but I don't think that any of it's genuine. Which is why the show is.
I can't respond because I haven't seen it, so I won't. I'm going to let you have it. I've seen the trailer, and I thought the trailer had interesting moments. I actually wanted to see it. I can't bring my son because it was rated R, and I didn't know how sexually graphic it got. I was told it was too much for his age.
Probably.
Yeah. He's 5. Yeah. At 5, I was told
definitely for that then, yeah.
Yeah, I was told. So I did not go to the theater. And to be honest, I was going to go the weekend that his mom came to pick him up, but it was already out of the theaters. It was out of the theaters so quick.
It didn't make money.
My local theater, literally, my son gets picked up by his mom every other weekend. That is how quickly it went out of my local theater. It was no longer here.
But and it's funny because the director has been attacking the fans. It's like, oh, I just guess they weren't ready for this kind of.
No, men. It's men again. We have 51% of the American public is female. That's according to estimates. Of course, we just all did the census, or we didn't do it because now there's a debate whether everyone did it. I think I did it. I don't know because I used their website and it acted weird, like every other government website. So maybe I did the census this year. Lord knows, because there's no real tracking it. But either way, 51% of the population is female. But it was all just the men's fault. What about the 50%, 51%?
Like the big thing is that when the big thing that turned literally 90% of the people I know off from the film is when they came out with the character posters and everybody saw Cassandra Cain in the film and how she was being portrayed.
You know what turned me off? The outfits turned me off.
The designs as well, but like
that's a comic book to me. It was like the Joker. I still haven't seen the Joker.
The Joker is good for what it is. I hate all this talk about trying to get a sequel because it underwrites what the film is supposed to be. The Joker is essentially just a reskinned version of Taxi Driver. It's really good. It brings up a lot of commentary, and it uses the character and persona of the Joker to tell a story about that is a commentary on the state of mental health care in the country.
But why couldn't we get a fucking Joker movie? I'm still waiting for a good Robin. I'm still waiting for a good Nightwing. But what do I get? I get falling down Joker.
They got so close to doing Nightwing decently on Titans, and then they messed everything up in the last 4 episodes.
They ruined him in that. To be honest with you, I haven't renewed DC Universe because I don't like the Harley Quinn thing. I don't like how they're trying so hard to be funny using so many curses.
And that I will say, that is like my one big criticism about Harley Quinn, and this was something that I did not watch. I watched the first episode, and then I stopped watching for a hot minute. And it was because I am a very big advocate of something that Gene Wilder once said, whereas like a curse word in comedy should be used to amplify an experience. It shouldn't be otherwise it loses its weight. It shouldn't be every other word that's said, right? Like I'm fine with cursing being there, but when your character is just dropping F-bombs like it's the word and, you've kind of missed the point of it being a curse. Like the whole point is that this word is supposed to have weight. Allow it to have weight.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I just again, and this is me being a comic book fan. It's my comic book fan opinion. I don't run DC yet. Give me time. But for now, when I look at this, AT&T might be looking to sell. Yeah, all I gotta do is win the lottery now for Billy. It'll be fine. No, but seriously, you're not playing to comic book fans anymore. You're just taking shit and all these actresses are pissed off because they can't get roles in the DCU. So now they're all mad. So they're coming out with these derivative tellings of these stories because they don't get it. I mean, DC honestly barely gets how to make their own characters. They need to start stealing people from fucking Marvel to get it right, and that's what they did. They brought in Gunn. He's doing.
Oh, man,
I can't wait.
I got into it with the Snyder bot today. I used to be a pretty big defender of Snyder as like a kind of interesting, darker tone version of DC. But his social media presence and everything that he said after Justice League, I was just like,
well, he lost it.
No, and I understand that. And don't get me wrong, that's going to put a lot of like negative energy towards you. But I also feel like so Snyder.
No, I don't know, dude. Let's just leave this alone. The fact that he lost a kid, I feel comfortable having this conversation. There was a lot of ugly that happened during a very bad time of his life.
And that's fair.
We're okay talking about this film. You want to talk about the film? I'm open to that.
Yeah.
Not him. I don't want to talk about a grieving parent because I have a son and I almost watched him die and I would have burnt the world down around me.
I've got a kid too, 2 years old. If anything happened to him, I'd probably go on a killing spree.
So I'm not gonna talk about it.
And that's fair. And I wasn't just moving on from that.
Yeah,
but
let's just do that.
I hear I just when you actively have these characters, especially when it comes down to DC, go against the core things that make them what their character is. Like Superman's a beacon of hope. That is what his character like he was designed to be, the guy that stands up for the little guy. And when in 2 films you do not show him be that at all, and all you do is trying to create a controversy around him. It
was always meant to start Justice League and become the Superman we wanted, if you believe what's online. I had read something about it. There was supposed to be the Flashpoint that was going to change everything. That was the hinging moment. We were supposed to see Flash go back and change one aspect, and I think the aspect that gets changed is his dad dying.
And that if they did that, that would be okay. But like even still, like from the way that they portrayed Jonathan Kent, like the man,
I did like that. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, the man that they had Jonathan Kent be is just like, you just told a 12-year-old kid you should have let the bus full of kids drown.
But that's what it was. They were supposedly going to go back. If the rumor's true, he was going to go back and do something for Superman's dad to inspire the Kent that we had seen. And we would have seen being raised by a more supportive parent mattered more. And then that is what guided Superman to be who he was, not just his mom, but his dad too. And losing the dad was a big deal. It was kind of powerful. And I actually do wish we had gotten to see the end of it, because I like to see it go to fruition. But nothing DC does is fucking right. Anything they put out is shit on instantly.
It's sad because they used to have the golden standard of animation.
Oh, they still do. Their animation beats the shit out of Marvel.
I feel like the era, the golden age of DC animation died with Flashpoint Paradox. There have been onesies and twosies since, but like, man, I grew up like the first superhero movie I ever watched was Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Still an awesome fucking movie.
It's brilliant. Yeah. It's the Citizen Kane of animated feature. It's the best Batman. I will argue it with anybody. It's the best Batman movie ever made. You want to see how you write a Batman romance? Go watch Mask of the Phantasm.
Yep.
Like it's so good, and like you've got the great Bruce Timm animation, you've got the fantastic voice cast that made that animated series great. You've got these beautiful operatic scores, the use of 3D digital to enhance the buildings in the skyline and make them pop. Everything for it worked. And, not every movie is going to be that much of a hit, and I understand that. But, like, even still, you take a look at things like Justice League War, and you see Darkseid, and you see how the League fights Darkseid, and Darkseid literally just stands there like a brick wall and occasionally swats someone away. And I can understand how, like, to some people that would be, oh, well, that's to show how powerful he is. But it's not dynamic.
Look at godlike. The god doesn't step down until he has to.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, is that the god has stepped down. Let him do stuff. Like if Darkseid is showing himself on the battlefield, it's time to really showcase power. And so like when you watch like the Justice League animated series, every single fight with Darkseid and Superman is dynamic. You watch it, you compare the animation from a fight in the Justice League show between Darkseid and Superman versus the fight between the entire Justice League and Darkseid in Justice League War, to include Superman. And it's a joke.
But you also have to understand, this is the truth. Our comics are reflective time capsules. The fact that we have had such shitty comics, arguably, I know some people still say these comics are great. So arguably, if we're saying the narrative of these cartoons and these comic books have been so shitty, and the MCU seems to be outside of that bubble because, again, they've taken things from decades ago. Let's be honest. They've taken storylines from decades ago. Maybe it's just that we're in a shitty life period. And right now we're at this great pause. Maybe we can have a great restart.
And I completely agree with you. And the big thing, speaking of the DC animated features and in a nice rebirth, I will say this. I am actually looking forward to Darkseid War, and the thing that restored my faith a bit in DC animation was Superman Red Son. They took a storyline that I had zero faith in.
I haven't seen it yet. Is it good?
Oh man, I hated Mark Millar's Superman Red Son. It was a slog to read, and it didn't make sense that Superman would still have the same personality if he grew up and was Stalin's Superman, because Stalin literally threw people into gulags and murdered people. And they took that part and they ran with it. And it becomes this brilliant adaptation that tells a story on how absolute power corrupts even the people with the most pure intentions. And it's awesome. Highly recommend.
I definitely want to see it. I mean, where did you see it? Just so I know.
I actually bought it. I had
can't buy things, man. I'm stuck inside. Help me. Did you get one of those codes?
like you could probably there's probably a whole bunch of torrenting sites, but
no, not on my show. No, we pay. I'll pay for watching it. I'll find it. I forgot. To be honest with you, I just, with everything that's going on, sometimes things get a little forgotten around. Yeah. Red Sun, or trying to get supplies to survive the next week. Red Sun goes on the backlog. I do have to get going though. So
you're absolutely good. I've got to as well. I enjoyed really chatting with you guys.
Where can they find you?
Before I log off, so I've got a Twitter. Twitter handle is Elysian Fields _0, which is spelled ELYSIAN. I have an Indiegogo, which you guys can find spelling, typing in the same thing. I'm fairly certain I'm the only one with that handle. And then I'm on Facebook, Michael Odin, and
Kickstarter.
And I don't have
Indiegogo.
Already talked about the Indiegogo.
No, talk to him. Tell him what it is. Give him the pitch. The pitch.
Goodness. Yeah. So the pitch is that there is a tournament in the underworld between all the pantheons of gods in existence, where they pit teams of heroes and monsters against each other, and the winner of this tournament becomes the new lord of the underworld. And so Achilles has been taken out of his heaven after his death to fight in this tournament and help Hades regain his seat as Lord of the Underworld. And in return, Hades will grant him his greatest desire. So please give us a check out. Love any support you can throw our way.
All right. I'm going to wrap up the show, but thank you for being on. I just want to talk to the watchers for a minute.
Yeah, no problem. I'll leave.
But I appreciate it. If you want, you can hang out so we can talk a little bit on the way out. But
yeah, sounds good.
I do have to wrap up the show because Jax does need my attention. I got to do the dad things. That's important.
Dude,
but I want to talk.
Completely get it.
I wanted to talk to all of you guys. Notice that today was a difficult conversation. There were no really any right answers. There were people giving opinions. But look, there was a conversation that happened, and people got to express themselves, and opinions and feelings were discussed in a way where no one was called a Nazi. No evil name was thrown anyone's way, and no one was called out for being unsupportive of other people. There might have been unpopular opinions. People might have disagreed. But in the end, they all had the ability to communicate with each other. So when this whole thing stops and the great pause is over, why don't you restart by listening to people instead of talking over them? Why don't you restart by being open to conversations with people that you don't agree with? That is so important, to be able to reach out to someone that you don't agree with, hear their side, and get to learn a perspective that isn't yours. Let's get rid of these safe spaces and tear them down for halls of communication. Let's begin to have conversations that aren't friendly but honest, that aren't safe but challenging, that aren't lies to each other and when we talk behind each other's back, but instead talk to each other's faces and find common ground that we can all move forward with. These difficult conversations are going to be so important for our future to move forward. So please begin to have those conversations. Stop calling people names. Stop being fucking childish. Grow the fuck up and have real conversations with people that bring understanding with each other, and befriend people and learn different perspectives, and stop staying in your little bubbles and your little safe spaces, and instead join the real world, join the bigger world. And instead of being cool, why don't you be respectful? Why don't you be honest? And why don't you listen to other people and stop telling people about your stories and asking people for their receipts, and instead just be a fucking good person who hears other people. I appreciate everyone who was on the panel today. I appreciate their honesty, and I appreciate all of you who have listened to us and go on for almost 3 hours today. You're awesome. You are all amazing. Thank you all. We'll see you at the next one, 4 p.m. tomorrow. And who knows? Maybe we'll do a sequel to this one in the coming weeks. Support Kickstarters, support Indiegogos. Go out there and keep comic book creators creating. And if anyone tells you that a comic book creator isn't a representative, a customer service representative, or somehow not responsible for making you a fan of comics, they're just someone you shouldn't be a fan of. Every one of us in indie comics and underground comics are willing and able to answer your questions. The lines are open. Communicate with us. Thank you all for being part of this. This has been a production of both the Indie Advocates Network and the OnCon creation. Wow, I've got 17 messages from people. I wasn't even, this is how much I wasn't paying attention to messages. I actually did not see how many I have in my private chat. So I'm going to go check out my private chat and see who's yelled at me. Thank you all for being part of it. You guys are awesome. I'll see you at the next one. Thank you for being part of this connection.